Chapter 369. The siblings, Margaret and Matson, were unlucky enough not to be buried in the same tomb. After kicking a bored man who tried to flirt with her to the wall, Margaret clapped her hands and looked around the tomb that she had just entered. If this was the main tomb of the sea god, she would rather write her name backwards. When they saw the scene of a cute girl beating up a big guy, they both made the decision to stay away from this girl. Speaking of which, where were the others? Where were they? Do you dare to answer if I call you? The door slowly opened. Because it had not been opened for a long time. A large cloud of dust came out as soon as it opened. Fengwu waved her hand, and created a combat energy shield for herself and Shouzo to protect them from the dust. The door is open. Haha, all the good things in here belong to LZ. No one can fight with LZ. Divine weapon. There must be a divine weapon in here. As the tomb opened, there seemed to be the light of a treasure shining inside. Under the light of the treasure, the greed in the hearts of the humans was completely drawn out. The heart of water. It must be inside. I'm going to find the heart of water. The heart of water is mine. No one can snatch it from me. Xiaozuo's eyes were filled with madness. He pushed Fengwu away and was about to charge forward. Fengwu frowned when she saw this. She channeled a trace of pure sword energy and shot it into Shouzo's forehead. Shouzo's expression was a little dazed. What just happened? Are you okay? Fengwu patted his face and asked with concern. What happened? Shouzo noticed that the crowd around him had gone crazy. His eyes flashed with shock. What was going on? How could these people suddenly lose their minds and rush forward? You were controlled by the greed in your heart. As expected of a fish-lipped human. Other than Fengwu, this silly girl, who doesn't have any greed in her heart, everyone here has greed. No wonder you were affected. Bao Bao laid on Fengwu's head and bit on Fengwu's hair as he looked at the crazy crowd with disdain. Greed. There's something wrong with that light. The moment the door opened, everyone felt a ray of light shining on them. He remembered that when he saw the ray of light, his consciousness began to fade. Of course, that light can magnify the greed in people's hearts. In other words, if you only have 10 points in your heart, it can magnify it to 100. Although you have greed in your heart, you don't have any ill intentions. Although this light will affect you, it won't be a big problem. As for those people, do you see it? In addition to magnifying the greed in their hearts, even their evil thoughts have been magnified. Even killing and seizing treasures have begun in advance. Bao Bao said as if he was watching a good show. In front of the door, a group of people were fighting, not willing to let anyone enter first. Everyone felt that the treasures inside belonged to them alone. Anyone who wanted to enter the tomb was robbing them, and had to be killed. In front of the door, a fierce battle had begun. People were constantly injured and bleeding, but no one cried out in pain or retreated. Their eyes were red with killing intent, and their hearts were controlled by greed and evil thoughts. Xiaochun. A silver ancient sword appeared in Fengwu's hand. This sword was the pure sword. The pure sword had already felt the billowing killing intent in this place. The entire sword was drooling at the killing intent. If it wasn't for Fengwu holding it down, it would have rushed out to eat. Go wake them up, Fengwu said to Xiaochun. Xiaozuo looked curiously at the spiritual sword in front of him. This couldn't be a sacred weapon, right? It was so spiritual. It wasn't that Xiaozuo's family didn't have any sacred weapons. He was no stranger to sacred weapons, but this was the first time he had seen one with such spirituality. Obviously, this sword couldn't have any expression, but he could still feel the sword's disappointment under Fengwu's order. It seemed like it wanted to eat a big meal, but Fengwu only gave it porridge and side dishes. Did a sword need to eat? He must be hallucinating because he wasn't fully awake yet. Although Xiaochun wanted to eat a big meal, he didn't dare to disobey Fengwu's order. He could only obediently release his energy to wake these people up from their greed and evil thoughts. Xiaochun was indeed the purest and most flawless divine artifact in the world. Just a sliver of its power was enough to awaken these fellows who had fallen into madness. What's wrong with me? Who attacked me? Who hurt LZ? Come out, I promise I won't beat you to death. Io. Ouch, it hurts. Which damn bastard dared to stab me in the ass? Don't let LZ know who it is. or else he will kill you. 8 out of 10 people who woke up were injured. They couldn't remember how they were injured. Although they were cursing, their hearts were filled with shock. They knew that they had been tricked. Fortunately, they woke up in time. If they were late, they might have lost half their lives here. There must be something wrong with that light. These people weren't stupid. They quickly found the root of the problem. I think so too. I don't know what that light is. I only saw it once and I felt dizzy. Then I couldn't remember anything. Me too. That light was King Evil. Ha. I say, why are the two of you completely fine? In a group of people who were bleeding and injured, it was difficult not to attract attention when two people were standing in perfect condition. Even their clothes were not wrinkled. Therefore, Fengwu and Shouzo quickly attracted the attention of others. It couldn't be helped. Although their clothes were not spotless, compared to the others, they were unbelievably clean. There wasn't even a trace of blood on them. Wasn't it obvious that there was something wrong with the two of them? Did you do it? So many of us have lost consciousness. Why are you all fine? Did you want to take the treasure for yourself? So you deliberately hurt us. The person who shouted was none other than the female magician who was taught a lesson by Fengwu. This woman wanted to kill Fengwu for a long time. Of course, she would use such a good opportunity to deal with the woman who made her lose face in front of so many people. Heh, you really dare. Xiaozhu wanted to laugh at her. This woman was simply too annoying. Xiaozhu rarely allowed himself to hate someone because he didn't want to live his life in hatred. However, he didn't have a good impression of this woman. If Fengwu wanted to kill her, he would raise both hands and feet to support it. I didn't do it, Fengwu said seriously. Chapter 370. Why did this person accuse her and Xiaozhu of doing it? She and Xiaozhu clearly didn't do anything. The Fengwu girl bit her lips, feeling wronged. She had asked Xiaoqun to save someone, but she was wrongly accused by the person she saved. The Fengwu girl felt uncomfortable and wanted to hit someone. Don't think that everything will be fine if you deny it. If you say that you didn't do it, then why did all of us get hit but you two are fine? Does that make sense? The woman smiled viciously. If it wasn't for Fengwu saving you, you would have already killed each other. Jumping out to accuse your savior as soon as you were saved. You really are shameless. Xiaogu was very angry, feeling indignant for Fengwu. If he had known earlier, he would have saved this woman and let her go crazy. That way, he wouldn't have been bitten by her. When everyone heard Xiaozhu's words, they were shocked. It was hard to imagine that the person who saved them was this black-haired girl. It was too hard to believe that this little lowly could save them. Thinking of this, everyone's eyes couldn't help but show a trace of suspicion. Seeing that no one believed him, Xiaozhu was slightly angry. These people were really ingrates. He might as well not have saved them. Do you know what that light was? Xiaozhu smiled coldly. What is it? Someone couldn't help but ask. That light can magnify the negative energy in a person's heart. For example, greed and evil thoughts. When we were hit by that light, our greed and evil thoughts were magnified at the same time. That's why everyone lost their minds and attacked the people around them. Because everyone wanted to monopolize the treasure, they killed everyone they saw. I was also controlled by greed. Fortunately, Fengwu was beside me and saved me in time. Otherwise, I would have been like everyone else and killed each other. With my strength, if I had rushed in front of everyone, I would have died. You said that she saved you? What did she use to save you? The woman said arrogantly, her cold face full of suspicion. Why should I tell you? Xiaozhu looked up with disdain. You. The woman was infuriated. A normal person dared to give her such a look? If she didn't kill this guy, she wouldn't be human. Everyone, let's hurry up and recover. Now that the tomb door has been opened, we should continue moving forward and not listen to others arguing over a guess. A swordsman with a long sword said. They were here to hunt for treasures. Who had the time to listen to other people's quarrels? The others thought the same and nodded their heads. Then, they each took out the medicine they carried with them to treat their injuries. Are you going to let these two despicable bastards go just like that? The woman screamed in disbelief. The others continued to heal themselves and ignored her. However, the man who had spoken first, Boucher, turned around and glanced at her. Please settle your personal grudges. Don't treat others as fools. The woman's face immediately turned red and white. The others who were watching this scene sneered in their hearts. This woman really thought that they didn't know what she was thinking. Wasn't it just that she couldn't deal with the black-haired lowly and wanted everyone to stand on her side and help her? It was a good idea, but it depended on whether they were willing to cooperate or not. There were very few idiots who could reach this stage except for that woman. Who would be willing to make enemies for a stranger they had never met before? Xiazhua was happy to see that the woman was defeated. He found a place to sit down with Fengwu and started eating. He felt that the meat bun in his hand had become even more delicious. Seeing that no one was paying attention to her, the woman lowered her head and her eyes were filled with hatred. Just you wait. You people who look down on me can be smug. Don't let her find a chance. Otherwise, I'll make sure you all die a horrible death. Anyone who dares to look down on the Lianya family can go to hell. This woman was from a side branch of the Lianya family. The sixth elder of the Lianya family, Shiat, who had died at the hands of Skycliff, was her father. Her name was Bess. She had always relied on her relationship with Shiat to do whatever she wanted in the Lianya family. Other than the direct descendants of the family and the children of the other elders, she didn't need to give face to anyone. But some time ago, her good days came to an end. Shiat was killed. Without his protection, those who had been bullied by her in the past had been looking for opportunities to take revenge. There was once when she was surrounded by the daughter of the ninth elder, who used to be inferior to her. She almost died in their hands. Fortunately, she still had some tricks up her sleeve. Her father doted on her a lot, and left her a lot of good things so that she wouldn't be killed so easily. She killed the ninth elder's daughter and her followers instead, becoming a traitor of the Lianya family. But Bess didn't regret it. What was the point of staying in a family that couldn't protect her? If the Lianya family really cared about her father's achievements, they wouldn't have let the ninth elder's daughter cause trouble for her, causing her status in the family to plummet. In fact, the Lianya family wasn't that heartless. Even if the sixth elder was dead, Bess was still a rare ice magus. She was also considered a genius in the family, so the Lianya family wouldn't give up on such a talent. The monthly allowance and potions that she was supposed to receive were not reduced. It was just that the potions and money that Shiat used to give her were no longer available. But Bess blamed the family for the money that Shiat gave her. She thought that since her father had sacrificed himself for the Lianya family, she should be treated the same as her father before he died. Since her father couldn't give her any more money, the Lianya family should take the initiative to do so. If they didn't do so, they would be heartless. And what she thought of being bullied for revenge was even more nonsense. Other than the ninth elder's daughter who wanted to take the opportunity to punish Bess because she had been bullied by her in the past, the other people's attitude towards her was at most not as fearful as before. Those who tried to curry favor with her also left. There was no other bullying. The main reason was that she couldn't accept such a difference in treatment. She had never suffered a little. Others just changed their attitude towards her. Although they would occasionally say a few words to her, but when it came to offending her, no one would do so. Everyone knew that Bess had high potential, and was also an ice magus. In the future, she might even have a seat in the Elders' Council. As long as they weren't stupid, they wouldn't offend her. It was only because she was too fragile that she couldn't bear the slightest grievance. Later, she killed the ninth elder's daughter, became a traitor, and fled from the Lianya family. After Bess fled from the Lianya family, she had been traveling alone in the Great Evils, looking for the murderer of her father. Unfortunately, she couldn't find Skycliff no matter how many times she searched. Instead, she found Fengwu and Mingxi. For these people who were with Skycliff, the Lianya family had already investigated them thoroughly. They even drew portraits of them, so Bess could easily recognize Fengwu and the others. Chapter 371. Although the Lianya family had investigated that those people were the students of Notre Dame du Starlight, there were a few people who couldn't find out their identity. Every time they checked, there was a secret force to prevent them from investigating, which made the Lianya family not dare to make a move easily. The identity of Mingxi and Skycliff was very mysterious. They spent a lot of money but couldn't find anything. However, other people, including Fengwu, were investigated. Fengwu's identity as the Feng family's first daughter was also dug out. It could be said that except for Mingxi and Skycliff, the identity of other people was almost investigated. Although Fengwu was the Feng family's first daughter, according to their investigation, the Feng family had already abandoned her. An unmarried and pregnant first daughter, who would dare to take in such a person who was abandoned by the family, even if her previous identity was prominent? The Lianya family wouldn't put her in their eyes. When Biska saw Fengwu, she had already made up her mind to kill her. Even Ming, she was on her kill list. But through the investigation of the Lianya family, Biska felt that Mingxi's identity was very complicated. She didn't know if killing him would cause unnecessary trouble. Mingxi couldn't make a move for a while. So Fengwu became an important person to attract Biska's firepower. Along the way, whenever she had the opportunity, she would find trouble with Fengwu. If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't want to kill in front of these people, she would have already killed Fengwu to avenge her father. After an hour of rest and recovery, everyone's injuries had been treated. Now what they had to do was to enter the tomb. Behind the stone door, it was dark. It was very different from the outside. Outside the stone door, there was a shining crystal wall that brought light to everyone. But behind the stone door, there seemed to be nothing. There was nothing to light up, and nothing could be seen. Taking out the magic props for illumination, everyone walked into the stone door with vigilance. Just as the first person walking in front stepped into the stone door, suddenly, there was a bright light. Behind the stone door was a spacious hall. There were 4 pillars in the hall, and in the center of the hall were 2 stone coffins. The sarcophagus looked ancient and grand, but the craftsmanship was crude. It could be seen that the person inside the sarcophagus didn't have a high status. On top of each of the 4 pillars, there was a 7-star lamp. Now the 7-star lamp was permanently lit. Although the light was not as dazzling as the crystal outside, the basic illumination was not a problem. Around the hall, there were several huge murals. The murals were similar to the ones outside, but on the murals, there was a huge stone statue. The person on the stone statue was a man with rough facial features. The man held a scepter in his hand. He looked noble and extraordinary, and his eyes were filled with contempt for all living beings. Look, aren't the people on these murals the sea god? Someone pointed at the murals with stone carvings and said with uncertainty, "It's possible." The sea god was a god worshipped by all the countries on the sea at that time. "The statue on this painting is most likely the sea god," someone replied. At this time, a man with a double axe walked between the 2 sarcophagus and began to open the lid of one of the sarcophagus. "What are you doing?" Seeing the man's actions, everyone asked in surprise. "Do you even need to say it?" "Of course, I'm opening the sarcophagus to see if there are any treasures inside. This is the tomb of the sea god. Even if it's just a small character buried with him, there must be a lot of good things in the sarcophagus. Don't tell me you don't want it." The man looked at the people who were glaring at him with disdain. "If I were you, I wouldn't touch the things in the tomb." Shouzo suddenly spoke at this time. Everyone turned to look at Shouzo and Fengwu, who were standing not far from the door. Shouzo was probably the weakest of all, so he had been ignored by everyone. He usually didn't take the initiative to speak. Except for Bess, who had been looking for opportunities to deal with him and Fengwu, no one would pay extra attention to an ordinary person like him. Now that he suddenly spoke, everyone was a little surprised. "Pretty boy, you don't have the right to speak here." The man with the axe seemed to be disdainful of Shouzo. He couldn't stand other people's hypocrisy. They were obviously here for the treasure. What was wrong with opening the sarcophagus? When the treasure was discovered, these people would be more excited than him. As for Shouzo, the man didn't care at all. Shouzo was just a pretty boy who relied on women to survive. Who would care about this kind of man? Such obvious disdain, he believed that anyone could see it. However, Shouzo didn't say anything because of the man's disdain and contempt. This place has long been set up as a place to cultivate corpses. The corpse in the sarcophagus has already become a zombie. Once the sarcophagus is opened, the consequences will be unimaginable. Shouzo said with a serious face. Unfortunately, not many people believed his words. Cultivating corpses with evil. If there really was an evil aura, why couldn't the others find it? Why did a piece of trash like you find it? Are you kidding me? If they really couldn't even compare to an ordinary person, they could just go and die. Because he was confident in his own strength, no one believed his words. Instead, they thought Shozo was just trying to please the crowd. Bess didn't hide her ridicule. He really overestimated himself. A mere ordinary person wanted to show off in front of a group of strong people. How ridiculous. Fengwu silently looked at the group. She could see that these people didn't believe Shozo's words. Shozo obviously didn't lie, so why didn't they want to believe him? Don't joke around. Cultivating corpses with evil aura. Who do you think you are? How can you tell if this is a place to cultivate corpses with evil aura? The man sneered and continued what he was doing. He had long been excited by the treasure in his imagination. How could he have the time to care about a piece of trash? Shozo sighed and didn't try to convince them. He knew that it was useless to say anything now. He didn't have much hope in the first place, so he wasn't too disappointed. The sarcophagus will be opened soon. What should we do now? Shozo looked at Fengwu. As the only fighting force in their temporary team, Fengwu was the one who made the decision. Fengwu blinked her big eyes, as if asking Shozo why he was asking her. No matter who she teamed up with, Fengwu was never the one who came up with ideas. She was used to just following orders. Suddenly, someone came to ask her for her opinion. This girl felt a little strange. Run to the back of the hall later. Bao Bao, who was sitting on Fengwu's hair, interrupted before Fengwu could speak. Shozo glanced at Bao Bao and nodded, indicating that he understood. Chapter 372. Fengwu watched the man open the coffin. If he didn't listen to Xiazhua, something bad would definitely happen. The Fengwu girl bit her lip. She could already see the baleful aura coming out of the coffin. Everyone was paying attention to the man's movements. The weapons in their hands were already tightly gripped in their hands. If the man really opened up a treasure, a great battle would begin. Even Bess aimed her staff at the man. As soon as the treasure appeared, she would immediately attack the man. Finally, the lid of the coffin was pushed open by the man. As soon as the lid was opened, the others immediately went forward to see what was inside. When they went forward to take a look, they saw a beautiful girl in a beautiful dress. The girl looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. She was beautiful and lively, and her skin was as white as jade. Her lips had a touch of bright red, looking very attractive. The white dress she was wearing was very gorgeous. It seemed to be some kind of sacrificial dress. The girl wore a silver bracelet on her body, and a string of copper bells on her waist. Other than these, there were no other extra accessories. Although the girl had been dead for many years, her body didn't seem to have changed at all. Time seemed to have stopped at her most beautiful moment. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't feel her breathing, everyone would have thought that the girl was just sleeping. Who would have thought that this was a female corpse that had been dead for many years? How is this possible? The sea god's tomb came from the primordial era. Tens of thousands of years have passed since the primordial era. How can the corpse not rot after tens of thousands of years? Someone exclaimed when they saw the young girl's skin. That's right. It's impossible for the corpse to remain the same for tens of thousands of years. Although this coffin looks good, it's not a treasure. It can't preserve the corpse for so long without decomposing. Could it be that this girl really has some kind of treasure that can preserve her body for tens of thousands of years? As this speculation was voiced out, the eyes of the man who opened the coffin lit up. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. Wasn't it true? If there wasn't a treasure, how could the corpse not decompose for tens of thousands of years? The man immediately stretched out his hand and touched the female corpse's body. A rough hand constantly groped the female corpse's body. What are you doing? You won't even let the female corpse go. Are you that thirsty? One of the men behind the man looked at the man as if he was a pervert. Can't you see? He's looking for a treasure that can prevent the corpse from rotting. Another person next to the man said with a smile. The two people who spoke were still very young. They didn't seem to be over 30 years old. Judging from their clothes, their family background should be quite good. Therefore, they weren't interested in the treasure that could prevent the corpse from decomposing. Don't let him take all the benefits. There's still another sarcophagus. Let's open it first. Someone was envious of the man who had opened the sarcophagus. He immediately thought of another sarcophagus that could be opened for treasure hunting. After being reminded, everyone remembered that there was indeed a stone coffin where they could find treasures. Because the man didn't encounter any danger after opening the sarcophagus, these people became bolder and put all their thoughts on treasure hunting. Under everyone's efforts, the other sarcophagus was opened. This time, a well-dressed youth appeared in the sarcophagus. The youth was very delicate and handsome. His skin was as smooth and delicate as the girl's. Not even a single pore could be seen. Looking at it now, he was a proper little fresh meat. The youth's clothes were exactly the same as the girl's. There was also a string of copper bells on the youth's body. Other than that, there were no other ornaments. Everyone was delighted. Great, this corpse didn't change. This meant that there was also a treasure on this corpse. What were they waiting for? Let's find it. The group of men began to touch the youth's corpse, trying to find the treasure they imagined. This group of people acted as if they hadn't seen a woman for more than 10 years. They stretched out their perverted hands towards the youth's corpse. Ah! At this time, a scream suddenly sounded. The people who were stripping off the youth's clothes turned around and saw that the people who were originally surrounding the man had all scattered. As for the man who was insignificant just now, his heart had been grabbed out by a jade-white hand. The one who did it was actually the female corpse that had been dead for 10,000 years. The female corpse that was originally sleeping in the sarcophagus had opened her eyes. Her eyes were actually crimson red. As long as one looked into her eyes, they seemed to be able to see a boundless sea of corpses and the painful wails of the dead souls. The man's heart was in her hand. There was a large hole in his chest. When the girl pulled out the heart, she could see the scene in front of the man through the hole. The corpse has changed. It was unknown who cried out. From the woman killing the man, to them retreating reflexively, to someone screaming in fear, all of this happened in an instant. But for those who had experienced it, it felt like a long time had passed. Be careful, don't touch that string of copper bells. Someone suddenly thought of something and shouted. But it was still too late. Among the group of people who were groping the youth's corpse, one of them had already grabbed the copper bells. Although he couldn't feel any magic fluctuations from the bells, and could tell that it wasn't a magic tool, the fact that the bells appeared on the two corpses meant that they had a history. He could take it down and study it. Just as that person was about to take the bells, the man who was killed happened to be frightened. When the other man shouted that he couldn't touch the bells were accidentally pulled out by that person. The moment the bells were pulled out, the youth suddenly opened his eyes. As for the man who pulled out the bells, he didn't even have time to scream before he followed in the footsteps of the man whose heart was pulled out. Everyone, let's do it together. The two corpses' sudden display of power did indeed startle everyone, but everyone here was someone who had walked through mountains of swords and seas of fire. After a short moment of panic, everyone immediately raised their weapons to face the enemy. The swordmasters raised their weapons and slashed at the two corpses. The two ancient corpses, one male and one female, only lightly waved their hands, and dozens of men were sent flying. This strength is too great. What the hell is this thing? I clearly hit her just now, but it felt like I was hitting a big rock. It's so hard. The people who were sent flying fell to the ground and wailed. They couldn't believe that there were corpses in this world that could be so powerful. Just a wave of the corpses could send so many people flying. They couldn't help but admire this strength. Chapter 373. Since the swordmasters were useless, the magicians began to attack. A series of spells hit the two corpses. The two corpses were pushed back a few steps, but they were not hurt at all. The two corpses were filled with murderous intent. They could see nothing but the instinct to kill. Everyone was on high alert and ready to fight at any time. They were afraid of the two corpses. Everyone, let's find a way to leave this hall first. At this time, no one wanted to fight with the two corpses. Since they could not win, they had to run. Were they going to stay here and fight? Let's go. Xiaozhua grabbed Fengwu's hand, and the two of them ran to the back of the hall. With the large group of people attracting the two corpses' attention, they were able to escape successfully. They did not encounter any obstacles. Damn, that gigolo ran too fast. Those who were still looking for an opportunity to slip away all cursed in their hearts. So many of them were risking their lives here, but the gigolo ran away with the black-haired lowly. That detestable animal, running away so quickly. Did he have any shame? Xiaozhua did not know that he had pulled down the bottom line in these people's hearts. Even if he knew, he would not care. Fengwu and Xiaozhua ran forward one after another. The two corpses were too strong. Even the Fengwu girl did not want to fight with them. Originally, Xiaochun's purification ability could purify the evil spirits, but the evil spirits here were not ordinary. Baobao did not recommend her to use Xiaochun's power to purify the evil spirits here. The source of the evil spirits here must be found. Before the source was found, even if Fengwu purified the evil spirits, there would be an endless amount of evil spirits being drawn into the tomb. Baobao did not want Fengwu to waste her time, so he used telepathy to tell Fengwu not to use the pure sword's power to purify this place. Speaking of the pure sword, Baobao had a lot of questions. He knew that the pure sword was the weapon of the pure goddess. Legend has it that the pure goddess fell in love with a man she shouldn't have fallen in love with. In order to not let her heart become ugly, she used her pure heart as the main material while her heart was still pure. At the same time, she found many materials in the god realm and made a divine sword. This sword was the pure sword. The pure goddess took the pure sword to find the man. The man's identity was not ordinary. There were even legends that said that the man was a demon god. In his inheritance, he remembered that at that time, there were gods who said that it was a conspiracy of the demon realm. They wanted the pure goddess to lose her pure heart and the power to purify everything. At that time, the demons would be even more fearless. For this purpose, someone in the demon realm disguised himself as a god and made the pure goddess fall in love with him. The pure goddess later found out about this scheme, so she used her pure heart to create the pure sword. The pure sword would never be tainted and had the power to purify all evil. With the pure sword, the pure goddess and the man fought for 3 days and 3 nights on the border between the god realm and the demon realm. In the end, no one knew the result. Some people said that they died together. Some people said that the pure goddess finally died in the man's hands, and the pure sword's whereabouts were unknown. Baobao did not expect that something like the pure sword, which could only be seen in legends, would appear in the hands of a normal person like Fengwu. This was simply too inconceivable. Moreover, the pure sword's spirit loved Fengwu so much. It knew that the pure sword was a divine weapon that could not be used by evil people. Only a person with a pure heart was qualified to be its master. Fengwu could become the master of the pure sword. Her heart must be pure. Even Baobao himself liked to stay by her side, which was obvious. It felt that Fengwu seemed to have a secret, but as for what the secret was, Baobao did not know. Its ability was to predict the future. Because it was still young, its strength was half-baked. It could not accurately predict what it wanted to predict. If its ability was to know everything, as long as it knew what had happened, then it must have stopped Fengwu from entering the tomb as early as it knew about this trip. It was useless to think too much now. Fengwu took Shouzo and Baobao quickly ran to the end of the road. They did not expect that the end of the road would be a cliff. The road was on the other side of the cliff. If they wanted to go, the only way was to jump over the cliff. "I'll take you there." Fengwu grabbed Shouzo's hand and wanted to fly over with him. Although the distance between the two sides of the cliff was far, there were several stone pillars in the middle that could be stepped on. There was no problem flying over with Qinggong. Shouzo was about to nod. "No." Baobao's voice suddenly interrupted. "Do you think that the sea god will let you go so easily? If I'm not wrong, there is a formation between the two cliffs. Once someone wants to fly over, their ability will be immediately sealed by the formation. Think about it, when you fly in the air and suddenly can't use any ability, what will happen?" Baobao was a wise beast. Its little brain had always been very smart. In addition to the knowledge passed down from generation to generation, it was much better than Fengwu, a girl who had transmigrated, and Shouzo, a reborn genius who had stayed at home for hundreds of years. Fengwu and Ajur could not help but imagine the scene. They imagined themselves falling down the cliff halfway, and falling into pieces. They swallowed their saliva. That scene was too beautiful. It was better not to think about it. Baobao is so smart. Fengwu girl touched the eggshell on Baobao's head. Her eyes were shining as she praised. That's right. Don't you know who I am? I am the most intelligent magical beast in the world. There is nothing that can stop me. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiazhua was still around, it would have definitely taken out its identity as the wise beast to show off. Unfortunately, Baobao could not know that its identity as a wise beast had long been lost. Shouzo, of course, would not take the initiative to say that he knew its identity. This matter was related to the secret of his rebirth. Of course he could not say it. What do we do now? There is no bridge in the middle. There is no way to cross. Without magic and douqi, they could only rely on their own strength. But no matter how strong their body was, it was impossible to jump over the cliff. There was no bridge, and they could not use their strength to fly over. They would be trapped to death. Chapter 374. At this time, a shout came from not far away. Hurry up. Damn it, there's no road ahead. Get out of here, the two monsters are coming. Let's hope that the binding scroll can last a little longer. Let's get out of here before they break free. Behind Fengwu and Shouzo, a long line of people rushed over, talking nonstop as they ran. The panic in their eyes was almost tangible. Damn it, there's no road ahead. The cliff successfully blocked the group of people who had just escaped from the hands of the ancient zombies. Fortunately, we still have the flight scroll. Many people had already taken out the flight scroll, wanting to fly over the cliff. Stop. Don't do this if you don't want to die. Shouzo quickly stopped these people. Boy, what are you doing? Don't block our escape. That monster is about to catch up. Shouzo's obstruction immediately caused these people to shout in dissatisfaction. There's a formation at the bottom of this cliff. Once someone tries to use magic or douqi to fly over here, all their power will be sealed, and they will fall from here. Shouzo was not a person who would not help others. Although these people's attitude towards him was not friendly, he also did not want to see so many of them die under this cliff for no reason. Is this true? This was serious. Although they looked down on Shouzo's weak and almost non-existent strength, they did not dare to ignore this news. If this news was false, it would not be so bad, but if it was true, then if they wanted to fly over, wouldn't they die without a doubt? Some people were skeptical of Shouzo's words, and some did not believe it at all, but these people put down the flight scroll that was about to be successfully activated. Stop spouting nonsense. I think the two of you just can't get over it. That's why you want all of us to die with you. Bess provoked again. This girl would not let go of any opportunity to make Fengwu and the others suffer. Bess looked down on men like Shouzo who only knew how to rely on women to protect him from the bottom of her heart. She did not believe what Shouzo said at all. Of course, the more important reason was that she did not trust anyone related to Fengwu. If you don't believe me, you can try activating the flight scroll. Although Shouzo didn't want to see them die, he wouldn't stop someone from courting death. Not to mention, this person was Bess, who had been causing trouble for them and tried to kill him. Bess's eyes drifted away. She wanted to use the scroll to directly slap him in the face, but looking at this kid's fearless look, it seemed like he really had something to say. Could it be that what he said was true? Bess couldn't help but wonder. As for the method of activating the scroll and testing it on herself, Bess didn't intend to let herself take such a risk. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to do. At this moment, a bold person stood out and looked at Xiazhua, who was obviously a weakling, with disdain. LZ, I don't believe it. I'm going to try it today. Just when everyone thought that this guy would directly use a flight scroll to fly over, he unexpectedly took out a rope and tied it around his waist. He tied one end of the rope to a big rock nearby. Watching the tall and strong man make a full set of safety measures for himself, everyone blinked. Sure enough, you can't judge a book by its cover. Don't look at the impulsive, boorish appearance of this guy. In fact, there was a fine point in his rough appearance. Look at her heroic posture when she tied up the rope, her heroic spirit when she activated the flight scroll, and her graceful posture when she was falling down. This was, "People up there, don't just stand there, quickly help pull me up." The man's voice came from the bottom of the cliff. "Quickly, quickly, quickly pull him up." After hurriedly pulling him up, the man untied the rope tied around his waist, patted his butt and stood up. After Elsie's personal test, this kid really didn't lie. You don't need to say that, we all saw it. Everyone ridiculed in their hearts. What should we do now? How do we go over? This question appeared in everyone's mind at the same time. If they couldn't go over, then they could only wait for death. When the two ferocious ancient corpses came over, they would definitely be killed. That death would be too miserable. Fortunately, this problem didn't bother everyone for too long, and a smart person came up with an idea. The one who came up with the idea was the female magician who hadn't spoken a word. This magician had been very quiet on the way, and this was the first time she made her presence felt. The female magician had an eagle-type magic beast, and the idea she came up with was to use her magic beast to tie the rope to the opposite side. Then they would step on the rope to go over. Although they couldn't use any magic or do-chi, it wasn't difficult to maintain balance on the rope. This idea was unanimously approved by everyone. When choosing the rope, they specially chose a thick and strong one, which was safer. Because of the help of the female magician's magic beast, the rope was quickly tied. The female magician was the first to walk over. Her sense of balance was very good, and it wasn't difficult for her to step on the rope over the cliff. When she walked to the opposite side, it proved that this idea was feasible, and everyone lined up one by one to go over. At most, this rope could only be used by 2 people at a time. If there were more people, it would affect the balance. Feng Wu and Xiazhua didn't fight to be the first to line up, because they didn't fight for a position. They were the last to line up. Everyone walked very fast, and not long after, the second to last group was already standing on the rope and walking to the opposite side. At this time, a roar was heard, and a man and woman with a delicate face slowly walked towards them. These 2 people were the 2 ancient corpses. The ancient corpses actually chased after them, and the people standing on the opposite side of the cliff trembled with fear. They were very lucky to have lined up in a good position, and escaped the evil claws of the ancient corpses. The second last group hadn't gone very far yet, and Feng Wu was the only one who could fight on the edge of the cliff. "Retreat, hide." Feng Wu withdrew the short sword in her hand, and a silver long sword appeared in her hand. This sword was pure sword, and Feng Wu slowly unsheathed it, facing the male and female ancient corpses. "Be careful." Xiazhua nodded, and said worriedly. "N." Feng Wu responded, and took the initiative to attack the 2 ancient corpses. The surrounding sword chi was like a rainbow. Feng Wu's sword intent was the natural sword intent, and her sword intent carried the vitality of all things, but in the vitality, there was a trace of death chi. From life to death, it was a natural reincarnation, and some people said that nature was actually reincarnation, and Feng Wu's sword intent carried the meaning of reincarnation. Because Feng Wu's strength was far from pure sword, Feng Wu rarely used pure sword to attack herself. Her strength was still too low for pure sword, and when she controlled pure sword to attack, the purifying power of pure sword would be affected by her strength. Chapter 375. However, the pure sword was still a weapon. She had to learn how to unleash the power of the pure sword by herself, and not let the pure sword freely unleash its power. This was not a good thing for Feng Wu or the pure sword. Before leaving Notre Dame du Starlight, her master had told her to properly learn how to control the pure sword's power. Although the pure sword was very powerful now, it was still a weapon. A weapon could only unleash its greatest power in the hands of a person. Even if the pure sword looked very powerful now, it was still unable to unleash its greatest power. What it needed was its master to unleash its power. Feng Wu hadn't had a chance to practice with the pure sword during this period of time. Now, she had a chance to practice with the pure sword. Feng Wu used the pure sword to fight against the enemy. The onlookers on the other side of the cliff watched with trepidation. No one thought that Feng Wu would be able to survive against such a ferocious ancient corpse alone. It was really a pity. Such a beautiful and cute loli was ruthlessly killed by 2 ancient corpses. Just now,
They had more than 40 people besieging an ancient corpse. They sacrificed at least 6 people to fight for a chance to escape. Now Feng Wu was facing the ancient corpses alone. The result was obvious without thinking. Among so many people, only Xiazhua was worried about Feng Wu. Xiazhua didn't think that Feng Wu would die here so easily. To become the master of the wise beast, it was impossible for her to die so easily. He was also the only one who thought that Feng Wu wouldn't die. The pure sword in Feng Wu's hand emitted a white sword aura and attacked the 2 ancient corpses. The 2 ancient corpses seemed to feel a terrifying power from Feng Wu's sword aura. However, the corpses only knew how to kill. They didn't know what fear was. The 2 ancient corpses faced the sky and roared. That roar made people's eardrums hurt and their heads swell. Oh my God! This sound is too unpleasant to listen to. It's really unpleasant to listen to. The 2 people who were crossing the cliff were so shocked by this sound that they almost fell off the cliff. After stabilizing their bodies with great difficulty, the 2 of them walked even faster, wishing that their parents had given them 2 more legs. Feng Wu's sword actually hit the 2 ancient corpses, and the ancient corpses were destroyed just like that? What a joke. Of course it was impossible. What the sword chi hit was merely an afterimage left behind by the ancient corpse. The real ancient corpse had already dodged Feng Wu's attack. Because its dodging speed was too fast, it left behind 2 afterimages. Feng Wu identified the source of the sound, and turned around to block from behind. She was forced back several steps by the force. The power of the 2 ancient corpses was too strong. Their physical strength was simply abnormal. Just one attack from them had the power to split a mountain. Feng Wu retreated several steps. After standing firm, she changed the direction of her sword, and used the 9 profound sword art. The 9 profound sword art was the strongest sword art she could use right now. This sword art was passed down by Feng Wu's master, by Lianfeng. Its power was very strong, comparable to a saint-level sword art. The saint-level sword arts of this world were limited by the cultivation base. If one's cultivation base was not at the saint level, it would be very difficult to use it. Even if one used it, the body would not be able to withstand the powerful force and would be injured. It could be said that if one injured the enemy 1,000 times, one would lose 800 times. Normally, unless it was a matter of life and death, no one would use a saint-level sword art to fight when the difference between them and a saint level was too big. What a big deal! Could that be a saint-level sword art? I didn't think that little girl would have such a good thing. If you want it, go save that little girl now. Maybe she will be happy and give you the sword art. Go to hell. The saint-level sword art is not bad, but I still want to live for 2 more years. Most of the people standing on the opposite side of the cliff were swordmasters. The saint-level sword art was very tempting to swordmasters. The top sword arts in the continent were the saint-level sword arts and the god-level sword arts. Although there were not many saint-level sword arts, many big families had one in their collection. As for the god-level sword arts, only the super aristocratic families would have half of it. Now that a little girl might have such a treasure like the saint-level sword art, these swordmasters' hearts were naturally burning. However, when they thought that Feng Wu might die in the hands of the 2 ancient corpses, no matter how hot their thoughts were, they had to give up. Could it be that they could wait for Feng Wu to die and take her interspatial ring? There were 2 ancient corpses over there eyeing covetously. Although the saint-level sword art was tempting, their lives were more important. It was better to just forget about it. In the blink of an eye, Feng Wu and the 2 ancient corpses had already exchanged more than 100 moves. The ancient corpses' bodies were very powerful. Feng Wu had the pure sword in her hand, which had the ability to purify. Although it was controlled by Feng Wu and could not absorb the evil aura, it could still purify the evil aura emitted by the ancient corpses. Moreover, the pure sword's body was already surrounded by a pure purifying power. After being hit by the pure sword, the ancient corpses' bodies, which were like iron walls, would also be injured, leaving wounds on their bodies. Xiazhua had been watching from afar. He was worried about Feng Wu and was also surprised by her strength. He always knew that Feng Wu's strength should be very strong, but he didn't think that Feng Wu was actually this powerful. The saint-level sword art and the extraordinary dancing weapon in her hand were too easy to be coveted by others. He turned around and looked at the opposite side of the cliff. Sure enough, a group of swordmasters were staring at the sword in Feng Wu's hand with burning eyes. This sword was able to injure the two ancient corpses. With one look, he knew that it was not an ordinary sword. It was very likely to be a saint-level weapon. A saint-level devil sword was a strong temptation to many people. Even some great aristocratic families and super-aristocratic families would definitely be interested and send experts to seize it. Xiazhua was not surprised that the group of people opposite would want that sword. When he saw that the two people who were crossing the cliff had finally reached the opposite side, his eyes lit up. He immediately shouted at Feng Wu. Feng Wu quickly crossed the cliff. "We can go now." Xiazhua had already seen that although Feng Wu's strength was not bad, compared to the two ancient corpses, there was still a gap. If it wasn't for the weapon in her hand, Feng Wu might have been injured or even killed. The current Feng Wu was obviously not the opponent of the two ancient corpses. The only thing she could do now was to find an opportunity to escape. "You go first." Feng Wu bit her lips and said without turning her head. She couldn't leave now. She had to buy more time for Xiazhua, the Feng Wu girl thought. Bao Bao, who had been sitting on Feng Wu's head, was also anxiously looking in Xiazhua's direction. He hoped that this brat would not say something stupid like leaving together. Of course, Xiazhua would not do such a stupid thing. After hearing Feng Wu's words, he immediately ran in the direction of the rope bridge. Then he tried his best to balance his body and move to the opposite side. At the bottom of the cliff, there was a bottomless white fog. It was impossible to see what was below. If one fell, even if they didn't die, they would definitely be crippled. Chapter 376. At the bottom of the cliff, there was a bottomless white fog. There was no way to see what was below. As long as one fell down, even if they didn't die, they would certainly be crippled. Xiazhua resisted the urge to look down and steadily walked forward. He was now very glad. Even though he was crippled in both magic and martial arts, he had always paid attention to the training of his body. His body's balance and stability were not bad. As long as nothing happened along the way, he would certainly be able to reach the opposite cliff. At this time, Feng Wu was still fighting with the two ancient corpses. The attacks of the ancient corpses were all blocked by the pure sword in Feng Wu's hand. Even though their bodies were already scratched by the pure sword, and the wounds were often deep enough to see the bones, the two ancient corpses didn't feel any pain. Those wounds didn't have any effect on them. Moreover, in this environment where there was no evil aura, the two corpses could use the evil aura to heal their wounds at any time. Therefore, the conclusion was that although these wounds looked scary, they didn't have much effect on them. It didn't affect their attack on Feng Wu at all. Even though Feng Wu had the pure sword to protect her body, she was still surrounded by danger because of the pincer attack of the two ancient corpses. Feng Wu's arm was scratched by the nails of the ancient corpses. A bloody wound appeared on Feng Wu's hand. The corpses' bodies were full of evil aura. If one wasn't treated in time after being scratched by them, it was very likely that the evil aura would invade the body and cause death. However, this was not a big problem for Feng Wu. Feng Wu herself was the master of the pure sword. Her body had been nourished by the pure sword for a long time. Any evil aura that invaded her body would immediately be purified. There was no such thing as being eroded by evil aura. Feng Wu was injured, and the people on the other side were also worried. To be able to fight with these two powerful ancient corpses for so long, even if Feng Wu's weapon was more powerful, it couldn't be denied that her own strength also played a role. For such a young genius, it was better to live if possible. After all, not everyone could tolerate geniuses. There weren't many freaks in the world who would kill geniuses for fun. Seeing that Xiazhua was already halfway there, Feng Wu nodded. She turned around and unleashed her ultimate move. Sword chi filled the air, and Feng Wu took the opportunity to leap onto the rope bridge. She walked forward quickly. Feng Wu's body was light, and she had practiced a light body technique before. When she walked on the rope bridge, she did not sway at all. If Xiazhua hadn't heard the shouts of those people, he wouldn't have known that Feng Wu was behind him. Everyone was afraid that the two ancient corpses would chase after Feng Wu and the others. If the two ancient corpses chased after them, they could only cut off the rope to save everyone. Fortunately, the two ancient corpses didn't chase after them. The people on the other side of the cliff let out a sigh of relief. Just when everyone was relieved, the rope suddenly broke. Xiazhua didn't expect that Bess would actually plot against them at this time. After a scream, he and Phoenix fell down the cliff and into the white fog. "What are you doing?" The others also didn't expect that someone would suddenly plot against them at this time. Yes, just when Fengwu and Xiazhua were about to cross the cliff, Bess actually made her move. She used ice magic to freeze one end of the rope, so that the rope could no longer bear the weight of the two people. The part of the rope that was frozen by the magic directly shattered into ice shards, and the rope naturally broke. Seeing a group of men glaring at her, Bess's excitement of getting her revenge didn't reduce at all. "I didn't do anything. I'm just doing it for everyone's safety. What if those two monsters come after us?" Bess said, twisting her words. "You've gone too far. Don't think that others can't see that you're taking this opportunity to retaliate against them." Everyone present looked at Bess with unkind eyes. This woman can stab Fengwu in the back. Who knows if she won't plot against them? This kind of despicable person is better off killing. Bess saw that these people wanted to kill her. "You don't have to worry. I will attack those two people because I have a personal grudge against them. That woman and her accomplices killed my father. I killed her to avenge my father. I don't have any enmity with any of you. Don't worry, I promise this will be the first and last time. As long as no one tries to harm me, I promise I won't do anything to you." Everyone looked at each other, and finally figured out why Bess was targeting Fengwu and Phoenix. So there was such a reason behind it. No one suspected that she was lying. Using her own father to lie, no matter how they thought about it, it was unlikely. Because Bess killed people for a reason, these people's killing intent was reduced a lot. Although they wouldn't kill her, they were still wary of her and didn't dare to believe her easily. After dispelling the murderous intent of these people, Bess felt relieved. She wasn't sure if she could escape from so many people. Moreover, this place was too dangerous for her to act alone. If it wasn't necessary, Bess really didn't want to leave the group. If these people still insisted on killing her, she wouldn't be able to escape and act alone. Fortunately, these people didn't have a strong desire to kill her. The death of Fengwu and Shouzo didn't splash any waves. Adventurers face all kinds of dangers every day, and they always have a brush with death. No one has the spare heart to sympathize with the dead strangers. The cold wind blew on the body, as if it was cut by a knife. Mournful cries and screams constantly lingered in the ears, making people feel a burst of despair and coldness. The piles of white bones on the ground piled up into a small hill, and some poisonous creatures crawled around in the white bones. The ground was dyed red with blood, and there was no grass on the ground, only a few poisonous flowers standing in the wind. A white barrier shrouded the land, and no living thing could survive in this place. Shouzo felt someone patting his face. He struggled to open his eyes, and a vague figure appeared in front of him. Fengwu. Shouzo called out the name with uncertainty. "You're awake, are you feeling better?" Fengwu wrinkled her cute nose, and a pair of black gem-like eyes showed obvious concern. "Is this the bottom of the cliff?" Shouzo looked at the scene around him, which was like purgatory on earth, and suddenly felt a chill on his back. "We're still alive. I thought we were going to die this time." When she fell, a strong sense of unwillingness almost drowned her. He was burdened with the life and death of all the humans 100 years in the future. If he died before he could do anything, how could he face those who sent him back to the past with their last hope? Fortunately, he was still alive. As long as he was alive, he would complete his mission and help the Heavenly Wind continent escape destruction. Shouzo secretly swore in his heart. Chapter 377. A burst of shrill screams came. In this gloomy bottom of the cliff, it was like an evil spirit crying. "Thank me properly. If it wasn't for me, you would definitely be dead." Baby glanced at him proudly. His little eyes seemed to say, "I'm amazing, right? Amazing, right? Amazing, right?" Important things must be said 3 times. "You saved me." Xiazhua felt a little surprised. He thought that Fengwu used some special means to save him. He didn't expect that the person who saved him was Baby. It's not that Xiaozhua looked down on this little guy, but this little guy was so small, he could just put it in his pocket and take it away. Who would believe that such a little guy had the ability to save people? And as far as he knew, the wise beast didn't have any attack power, except for its own talent. It didn't have any power at all, so he really couldn't associate Baby with the person who saved him. Of course it's me. If you don't believe me, you can ask Fengwu. Baby said angrily. Fengwu heard this and nodded. It was indeed Baby who saved Xiaozhua. When the two of them fell to the bottom of the cliff, Pure Sword automatically jumped out to protect her, safely sending her to the bottom of the cliff. But Xiaozhua wasn't so lucky. It was Baby who used a special enchantment power as a wise beast to save Xiaozhua. You can set up enchantments. Xiaozhua was surprised. He had never heard of the wise beast having this ability. What's so strange about this? Although we are weak, it's impossible for us to have no power to protect ourselves. This enchantment power is our means of self-protection. This ability can only be used for self-protection. There is no lethality at all. Their wise beast family was so sad. They didn't have any attack power. If they didn't have a little power to set up enchantments, even ordinary small beasts could bully them. When did your wise beast family have this kind of power? The most important thing was, from Zicheng's friends, he had never heard that the wise beast had this kind of power. What the hell was going on? Xiaozhua was a little confused for a while. He couldn't figure out whether Zicheng deliberately concealed it in his previous life, or Zicheng's wise beast didn't have this kind of ability. You know I'm the wise beast. Bao Bao was instantly enraged and immediately retreated into Fengwu's arms. He looked like he was afraid of being kidnapped by bad people. He looked at Xiaozhua with vigilance. Xiaozhua rubbed his nose awkwardly. He seemed to have accidentally revealed something that he shouldn't have. What should he do now? Even the Fengwu girl looked at him with a puzzled face. Although Fengwu was simple, she was not stupid. She knew that the value of a wise beast was enough to make anyone have evil intentions. Moreover, she had never told anyone about the identity of the Rue beast, so how did Xiaozhua find out? Fengwu blinked her big eyes in confusion. 3 words were written in her eyes, asking for an explanation. Well, ahem. Actually, in my family there are records about the wise beast. Plus, I saw the wise beast's egg a few days ago, so I can probably guess the identity of the baby. Xiaozhua had no choice but to lie to Fengwu and the baby with guilt. You can tell that it's a Rue beast's egg? Everyone else thinks it's an ore. How do you know it's me? Unlike the Fengwu girl who was simple and gullible, Bao Bao was a wise beast. Although his IQ was not off the charts, it definitely surpassed most existences. How could such a simple lie be easily believed by Bao Bao? This question was so sharp that he was speechless. At this time there were more and more mournful screams, rising and falling one after another. Under such a cliff full of bones, it was simply creepy. Let's look around and find a way to eat. Xiaozhua stiffly changed the topic, not daring to let Bao Bao ask any more questions. If Bao Bao continued to ask, his disguise as a reborn person would be exposed. His identity could not be exposed now. If he let Irene know, it was because everyone was wearing a disguise and the target was the same. If his identity was exposed, it would be beneficial for everyone's cooperation. He did not have to worry about Irene telling others about his rebirth, because Irene's own identity could not be exposed. And compared to him, a reborn person, Irene was a foreign soul that could not be exposed, so Irene would definitely not talk about it. As for Fengwu, he did not want to say much because he did not want to drag Fengwu into this. There were many things he had to do in the future, and most of them were life-threatening. He did not want Fengwu to be involved in these things. He only wanted her to live happily. Of course, there was also his own selfishness in protecting himself. Bao Bao looked at him deeply. That meaningful gaze made people feel very stifled. There is such strong resentment and evil spirit here. We might have come to an incredible place. Bao Bao looked up and flew to Fengwu's head to continue building his nest. Fengwu nodded, agreeing with Bao Bao's words. This place was both red evil spirit and black resentment. It was really strange. Fengwu girl finished the identification. Fengwu looked around. The screams came closer to her ears, making Fengwu very puzzled. Who was screaming here? It must be very painful. She remembered that on Mount Yuehua, Her good friend De Xiong had screamed like this when he stepped into the hunter's trap. So pitiful. He must be injured like De Xiong, Fengwu thought as she blinked her big eyes. The sound here is really uncomfortable. The screams seemed to come from the pain of the soul. Just listening to them was unbearable. Xiazhua followed behind Fengwu and looked around at the bottom of the cliff. He found that there was no other way out except for poisonous insects, poisonous flowers, and white bones. There was only a pitch-black hole standing there. The screams were obviously coming from this hole. Should we go in? Xiazhua frowned as he looked at the hole. He didn't know whether to go in or not. It was obvious that it was not a good place. It might be a dead end if they went in. Of course, there was also the possibility that they could find a way out and leave this damned place. Do we have a choice? If we don't go in, are you going to retire here with a pile of white bones? Bao Bao rolled his eyes impolitely. Okay, he was the one who said nonsense. Let's go. Her master had said that if there were difficulties, she had to overcome them. If she really couldn't overcome them, she had to work hard to improve her strength and then overcome them. Fengwu had always listened to her master. At this time, Fengwu didn't feel much fear in her heart. Instead, she was thinking whether her current strength was enough to overcome the dangers inside. She decided that if it was too dangerous, she would bring Xiazhua out. Then, she would improve her strength and overcome the danger. Yes, it's decided then. If Xiazhua knew what Fengwu was thinking, he would definitely complain. Xiazhua, helpless face, have you ever thought about what if we can't get out? Fengwu, innocent blinking eyes, no, I haven't. Chapter 378. They walked into the pitch-black cave. Even though it was pitch-black from the outside, there was a faint light coming from the inside. There were a few green flames floating in the air. Even though they were able to provide some light, they were more frightening than anything else. A pitch-black cave with ghostly flames floating in the air. It was definitely the standard feature of a horror movie. Shouzo swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he followed closely behind Fengwu. The cry was getting closer and closer. In this cave, the cry seemed to be even clearer. In the cave there was only one passageway. This passageway led to the inside of the cave, and the cry seemed to have come from there. Let's go. Fengwu walked around the green willow, the wisps, and continued forward. Wait! Shouzo quickly pulled Fengwu back and took out a magic tool for illumination from his space ring. The dim cave immediately brightened up with the help of the illumination. A chilly wind blew through the cave from time to time, causing chills to run down his spine. To their surprise, there were no corpses in the cave, only some green flames. The two continued forward. The number of green flames increased. It was enough to make one's scalp numb. Those who were more timid would have fainted on the spot. Fengwu assumed the cries were people who were in the same situation as her friend, Big Bear. She kept walking in the direction of the cries. Even though Shouzo and Bao Bao were worried that the cries would bring them danger, she still insisted on going forward. It was as if a voice was telling her how painful the cries were, and that they needed someone to save them. Fengwu believed she could save them, so she went forward without hesitation. There was only one path in the cave. They kept walking forward and finally reached the end of the path. At the end of the path was a 2-meter-tall stone door. The cries were coming from behind the stone door. The closer they got to the door, the clearer the pain from their souls became. Shouzo was only a piece of trash. The cries of pain made his heart ache. He felt like his head was about to explode. When Fengwu saw that even his eyes were bloodshot, she immediately sealed his 5 senses with her Daodu, causing him to fall into a deep sleep. After finding a place to put Xiazhua down, Fengwu went to the door alone. She knew that the person she was looking for was behind the door. She slowly reached out her hand and wanted to push the door open. Bao Bao knew that he could not stop Fengwu. He had already decided to go all out. If there was any danger, he would just run away. Bao Bao could only comfort himself in this way. The door was pushed open and the scene inside was clearly imprinted in Fengwu's eyes. Inside the gate, thousands of souls were chained to the shoulder armor. These flexible souls were constantly being burned by a white evil flame. These flames brought them endless pain, but did not cause any harm to their spiritual bodies. Thousands of souls were constantly being burned by the flames. That kind of pain could not be described with words. Many of them had been turned into vengeful spirits with only hatred in their hearts due to the great resentment. Only a small number of them still maintained human rationality. Perhaps to them, maintaining human rationality was a kind of pain. The cries that Feng Wu and the rest heard were from these souls. Because of the endless pain they endured every day, the souls were screaming in pain. Could this place be the place where evil spirits are created? This is great. We can solve this problem once and for all. Bao Bao did not think that they would be so lucky. They could meet these pitiful souls who were imprisoned here to create evil spirits. There are actually living people who can come here. Little girl, you are so lucky to be able to come here alive. At this time, a voice entered Feng Wu's ears. Feng Wu looked in the direction of the voice. The person who spoke was a man in luxurious clothes. The man's clothes were very luxurious. They were even more luxurious than the man and woman outside. On his head was a crown that looked like imperial power. He was different from the surrounding souls who had lost their rationality because of the evil spirits and resentment. Although this man's soul also had evil spirits and resentment, it still allowed him to retain his own consciousness. You are the owner of this tomb? Bao Bao looked at the man for 3 seconds and said with certainty, Even my wise beast is here. I did not expect to see the wise beast after I died. The man looked at Bao Bao with surprise. Have you seen other wise beasts? Bao Bao asked curiously. Yes, I have seen a wise beast. It has a strong healing ability. It can heal any injury. It is a very kind little guy. It has helped Olay a lot. As the man spoke, he was being burned by the strange flames, but he did not make a sound. Even Bao Bao was impressed by his perseverance. He must be so tough that he could even endure the damage to his soul. Other than this guy, Bao Bao had never seen another human being. Don't tell me you're talking about my aunt. The wise beasts had always been few in number. Ever since the wise beast's ordinary nature was exposed, many humans began to have ideas about the wise beasts, wanting to contract their people. In order to protect their people, the wise beasts all hid in the depths of the spiritual world. Few magical beasts could find them. Your aunt is Millie? The human king was also very surprised. He did not expect to see the descendant of his friend. It really is my auntie. I didn't expect the friend that my auntie couldn't forget to be you. Even when my auntie died, she still missed you. Speaking of his auntie, Bao Bao was a little sad. Bao Bao's aunt Millie was a very kind wise beast. Among all the wise beasts, she was not the smartest, but she was definitely the kindest. If she was not kind, how could she die in the hands of the Shura clan to save a group of weak humans? When Bao Bao's aunt died, she was still very young according to the age of the wise beasts. She had just reached adulthood. Everyone in the clan felt sorry for her aunt's death. It was probably because her aunt's death was not worth it. They, the wise beasts, were smarter than others, so they often saw things very clearly. In that case, it was obvious that she would die if she stayed. She could go back to the spiritual world, but she chose to die with those humans. Even the smart wise beast still could not understand her aunt's way of doing things. Is Muriel dead? I can't believe that even she is dead. I told that fool to go back to the spiritual world, but he didn't listen. Hearing that his friend had died, a touch of sadness flashed through the eyes of the young king. Chapter 379. This emperor, who was still very young when he died, must have had a very deep relationship with the baby's aunt. The sadness in his eyes did not seem to be fake. From his eyes, one could see the sadness in his heart. That's what my aunt would do. The elders don't understand. We the wise beasts are very smart. Why did we give birth to someone as stupid as Aunt Millie? Feng Wu quietly listened to the spirit and beast talk. From their conversation, Feng Wu didn't know who Millie was, but she didn't ask. She contacted Xiaoqun in her mind and asked him to think of a way to save these poor souls. Xiaoqun of course agreed. If he could eat as much as he wanted, it would be strange if he didn't agree. But the fire was a problem. Xiaoqun thought for a moment, and then contacted his friend Pure Flame. Pure Flame, the purest fire in the world, ranked number 1 on the heavenly flame list. Ever since Pure Flame met Pure Sword on Mount Yuehua, Pure Flame had been living in Pure Sword's pure spirit space. It could be said that Pure Flame had contributed greatly to the successful activation of Pure Sword's intelligence. This was the first time Xiaoqun had asked Pure Flame for help. Pure Flame was a very lazy guy. If it had nothing to do, it would hide in its space and sleep. But this time, in order to help Fengwu, Xiaoqun had to ask his friend to come out. Pure Flame was number 1 on the heavenly fire list. It had the power to consume all fire. If it wanted to, it could consume any fire. It was just that Pure Flame was too lazy. Normally, it was too lazy to even move, let alone find other heavenly flames to devour, which required a lot of effort. Because of its friend's request, Pure Flame agreed to help. Pure Sword's body trembled. A human-shaped white flame appeared in front of Fengwu. When Fengwu saw Pure Flame appear, she looked at it curiously for a while. Although Pure Flame lived in her Dantian, she had never communicated with Pure Flame before. There was no contract between them. Fengwu could only communicate with Pure Flame through Xiaoqun. The appearance of the Pure Flames clearly attracted the attention of the White Flames. After 10,000 years, the White Flames had already developed a faint consciousness. They were all flames collected by the Sea God, so naturally, they were not ordinary flames. At the very least, they were flames that were ranked on the heavenly flame ranking. However, when faced with the flame that suddenly appeared in the shape of a small white person, they actually felt a deep sense of fear. They also felt that they would be destroyed by this little white flame at any time. They wanted to escape, but in front of the flame, they, who were originally very aggressive, did not even have the strength to resist. Even the flame became much wilted. They couldn't escape, and could only watch as the white humanoid flame floated in front of them in an instant, and then swallowed them whole in one gulp. Although they looked like flames, they were actually all split from the same flame. Pure Flame saw through this with a single glance. It ate and drank as much as it could in the midst of the thousands of flames. Its main body, which was hiding among the flames, wanted to use the flames to help it escape, but Pure Flame would not give it such a chance. Just as it was looking for a chance to escape, Pure Flame actually appeared in front of it. And then with a big gulp, it devoured its body. Without the power of the main body, the split-off flame quickly lost its light and was extinguished. How is this possible? This was the first time this human king had lost control. His face was full of disbelief, and it showed just how shocked he was. These flames had been burning for tens of thousands of years. They had endured hellish torment every day. They couldn't even destroy themselves. The only thing they could do was try their best to maintain their own intelligence, and prevent the baleful aura and resentment from turning them into an evil spirit. If someone had told him before that these flames would be swallowed by another flame, he would not have believed it. But today he saw a scene that he would never have dared to imagine. This feeling was simply too unreal. If he could still move and still had a physical body, he would definitely pinch himself hard to see if he was dreaming. After Pure Flame dealt with the flames, it immediately flew back into Xiaoqun's sword spirit space to slowly digest its food. At this time, Xiaoqun appeared. It brought with it a pressure that made people tremble and surrounded the anger, purifying all the bad energy. Then he also destroyed the chains on these spirits. Purifying these two types of evil aura was extremely painful for the spirit bodies. Miserable screams rang out one after another in the cave. These spirit bodies let out despairing howls and wails. It was only a few minutes later that the evil aura was completely purified. Are we saved? Are we finally saved? We're finally free. Woo, we're finally free. Ah, LZ is finally free. Voices of joy sounded. These pitiful spirits had been tortured for so long. They never thought that they would one day regain their freedom. Everything that happened at this moment was like a dream. It made people worry that they would be locked in that place again in the next second, and let those terrifying flames burn their souls. Thank you, little girl. Thank you for saving my people. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. This human emperor who had never cried out or shed a single tear no matter how much he was hurt, shed a tear at this moment. He did not become an emperor for many years. In the beginning, he looked down on everyone. He felt that he was a high and mighty emperor, different from the ordinary people. As he grew, he understood his responsibilities and understood what it was to be an emperor. But he did not have the chance to do much, because not long after, he was affected by the power of the war between the gods and demons and died. His people, Lin, built a tomb for him and buried all the people who had died with him. Even if they died, they had to follow him, the emperor. However, they didn't expect that the sea god would be severely injured in the great war of gods and demons. In order to create a tomb that no one could steal, he moved his tomb to this place. From then on, whether it was him or his people, they lived in hell forever until today. No need to thank me. It doesn't hurt anymore, right? Fengwu blinked and asked seriously. The human emperor's heart warmed. This girl was indeed the one who was loved by the wise beast. She was really a kind and pure person. It doesn't hurt anymore. He smiled gently. Your Highness. Greetings, Your Highness. Your Highness. Are you all right? I deserve to die. I couldn't protect Your Highness and let Your Highness suffer so much. 1,000 spirit bodies knelt down in front of the former monarch, creating a huge commotion. Chapter 380. 1,000 spirits knelt down in front of the former emperor. It was a grand scene. The emperor's spirit sighed. His eyes flashed with relief and guilt. If it wasn't for him, these loyal soldiers and servants wouldn't have to suffer such hellish pain. His heart ached when he thought about the pain these loyal people had to suffer. Rise, it's my fault for implicating you all. The emperor's spirit said with sorrow. No. How can we blame Your Highness for all of this? We can only blame that despicable sea god. A general in armor stepped forward and said loudly. Everyone had just stood up when they heard their Highness blaming himself. Their noses turned sour and their eyes turned red. Let's not talk about this anymore. Quickly come and thank our benefactor. If it wasn't for this young lady saving us, I'm afraid we would never have a day of success. The emperor's spirit looked at Fengwu and said gratefully, Thank you, benefactor. So it was benefactor who saved us. Thank you so much. Benefactor's great kindness. If there is an afterlife, we will definitely repay you. Thank you, benefactor. Thank you, benefactor. Many spirits thanked Fengwu one after another. Fengwu blinked her eyes and tilted her head. She looked adorably at these pitiful spirits who were thanking her wholeheartedly. Stop, stop, stop. You're all talking at once. It's so noisy. Can you not talk together? It's too noisy. Bao Bao couldn't stand it and shouted. Many spirits heard that and stopped talking. This was obviously their benefactor's pet. They had received her kindness and naturally had to give her face. Do you all want to leave? Fengwu saw that everyone had quietened down and asked. Many spirits looked at the emperor's spirit. Whether they wanted to leave or not, it was up to their highness. Of course we have to leave. This place has too many painful memories for everyone. It's not a place to stay for long. Even though this former emperor had been tortured for 10,000 years, his emperor's temperament had not been erased. His every movement carried the noble aura that belonged only to an emperor, making people feel a sense of submission at first sight. You guys are going to reincarnate? Fengwu asked curiously. She thought of the spirit bodies she had encountered in the past. Most of them had already reincarnated into humans. Only a small number of them could not be saved or had problems with their bodies. They ended up being annihilated. Maybe. We've already stayed in the human world for too long. The cycle of life and death is a natural law. No one can escape from it unless they reach the divine level, he said. If you want to reincarnate, you'd better wait. Your souls have been tortured for 10,000 years, and your soul power has been weakened by a lot. If you don't take good care of her, she will be weak and sickly even if she is reincarnated. If it's serious, she will have to be reincarnated not long after she is born. Bao Bao sat on Fengwu's head with an expression that said, You have to believe me. The emperor's spirit nodded and did not doubt Bao Bao's words. He also knew that although he looked fine now, the 10,000 years of torture had already weakened his spirit body. If he did not recuperate well, there would indeed be problems. Oh yes, I just want to ask about Poseidon. Is he really dead? A general grabbed his head and stepped forward, asking Fengwu nervously. He has been dead for a long time. Fengwu thought for a while and said, So Poseidon is really dead. It's good that he's dead. If he didn't die, LZ would definitely kill a god. I think so too. I didn't expect the sea god to die so early. If he's still alive, I'll definitely perish together with that evil sea god, even if I have to risk my life. That's right, that's too easy for him. His mind is vicious, and his methods are as evil as the devil. How can such a person be worshipped by 10,000 people? How can he be worthy of being a god? If all gods are like this, I won't worship any gods in the future. Because of the news of the sea god's death, these burly soldiers began to criticize the sea god's crimes like an old lady in a wet market. If the sea god wasn't dead, these fellows would probably rush up and fight it out with the sea god. Everyone, quiet down. The emperor's spirit spoke. Reality proved that this emperor had a high position in the hearts of these soldiers and attendants. When he spoke, even if his voice was not loud, it still made them shut up. Benefactor, for you to be able to come here, is it because the Poseidon's tomb has been opened by someone? Although it was a question, it was not hard to hear from his voice that he had already confirmed this matter. That's right, Fengwu said. Can you tell us about the opening of the Poseidon's tomb? The emperor's spirit said with a smile. It had to be said that this emperor's spirit was very handsome. Although he was not as beautiful as Mingxi, who was as beautiful as the moon goddess, this emperor's spirit had his own unique temperament and a naturally handsome face. Fengwu nodded, then opened her small mouth and began to talk about how they entered the Poseidon's tomb. From walking through the endless corridor to crossing the sea to entering the tomb, she did not hide anything from the emperor's spirit. Benefactor, I don't know if I can ask you for a favor? The emperor's spirit suddenly said with a serious face. You want Xiao Wu to help you save the other emperors? You think too highly of Xiao Wu. It was pure luck that she was able to save you. As for the other emperors' tombs, it is not that easy to enter. Bao Bao was not happy. He felt that this emperor who had a bit of contact with his elders was forcing him to do something. I also know that it is a bit difficult for Benefactor to do this, but I can't bear to see the other emperors suffer in the hands of the Poseidon. For Benefactor's safety, I will not let Benefactor go save them directly. I only hope that Benefactor can take me with you and leave this place. Then when we go to the next tomb, you can save them like you saved us. During this period of time, we will protect Benefactor's safety together. If you encounter any fatal danger, we will risk our souls to save Benefactor's life, so that Benefactor can escape successfully. The Emperor's spirit pleaded. The Emperor's spirit pleaded with his eyes. He had no other choice. How could he feel at ease if he had to watch the Emperor of the human race stay here forever, and suffer the pain of his soul for the sake of the sea god's selfishness? Are you sure you will protect Xiao Wu's safety? Bao Bao asked for confirmation. Yes, even if we die, we will not let Benefactor get hurt. This was the Emperor's spirit's promise. The soldiers and maids who had been standing obediently to the side did not have any other thoughts. They did not think that there was anything wrong with the Emperor's spirit making this decision without asking for their permission. In their hearts, any decision their king made was right. They were very happy to save the other emperors. To be able to destroy the Poseidon scheme, and let the younger generation of the human race rob the Poseidon's tomb was a good punishment for the selfish Poseidon. Chapter 381. Bao Bao was quite moved by the king's spirit's promise to protect Fengwu. Xiao Wu, are you going to save the other spirits? If you want to go, you can bring these fellows along. These fellows were extremely strong before they died. They're the best fighters. The king's spirit smiled bitterly. He was the king of the human world, but in the eyes of this little Rue beast, he had become a fighter. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Save them. Fengwu thought for 3 seconds before making a decision. Was this considered chivalrous? In the past, she had heard from her master that martial artists like them needed to get rid of the strong and help the weak when necessary. She was now doing what her master said. When she went back, she must tell her master and let her master praise her for her ability. Unfortunately, Fengwu didn't know that her master had taught her the ways to survive in the martial arts world. If you don't go out and do some chivalrous deeds, who would know what kind of person you are? Aren't you embarrassed to call yourself a hero or a heroine? Aren't you embarrassed to stay in the martial arts world? Fengwu's original world was also a world where martial arts flourished. There were quite a few experts who entered the martial arts world through martial arts. To stand out in that world, reputation and strength were very important. As a newbie who just entered the martial arts world, the fastest way to become famous was to do chivalrous deeds. Today, they saved a girl who was being molested by a playboy. Tomorrow they would go and challenge a notorious bandit's lair. This was the way these chivalrous heroes became famous. Bai Lianfeng had originally planned to let Fengwu play in the martial arts world and improve her strength through actual combat. Unfortunately, before he could do anything, his beloved disciple Tianlan had already transmigrated into the Fengwu girl. In the Heavenly Wind continent, using Fengwu's previous world to do chivalrous deeds would definitely not work. However, the Fengwu girl didn't know this. In this world, if you wanted to ask someone to do something, it wasn't as simple as kneeling down and begging for help. If you wanted to ask someone to help, it was fine. Go to the big guilds and put up a mission. If the price was right, a bunch of people would rush to help you. If you don't have money and want to ask for help, you can only try your luck. If you are lucky, you might meet a fool who treats money like dirt. The reason why this girl didn't run over to help the weak was because she didn't think of it. Secondly, she didn't encounter such an opportunity. This girl had completely forgotten why she came to save people. It was only because the other person's pitiful cry reminded her of her friend De Xiong from before she transmigrated. Now, a request from the spirit of the emperor made Fengwu remember something that she seemed to have forgotten for a long time. She was going to start being chivalrous. When she went back and told her master about this, her master would definitely praise her. Bai Lianfeng, disciple, this world doesn't even know what chivalry is. You can do good deeds, but remember to receive benefits. Fengwu girl, blinking dazedly. Wait, it's okay to save people, but don't you know that there's a price to pay for asking someone to help? Bao Bao wasn't a simple-minded girl like the Fengwu girl. What it was thinking now was that since it was already on the Fengwu girl's boat, it had to do its best to help the Fengwu girl obtain benefits. These were ancient humans who had been dead for tens of thousands of years. In ancient times, treasures were everywhere. They must have something good on them. Of course, we won't let our benefactor work for nothing. When the spirit of the emperor heard Bao Bao's request, it didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. It was normal to ask someone to help pay a price. It's just that we don't have anything good on us right now. Fortunately, there are one or two things in my tomb that might be useful to our benefactor. We can go and get them for our benefactor. There really are good things. Bao Bao's miserly nature acted up, and it nodded in satisfaction. After deciding to help, the most important thing now was to leave this place. Leaving this place might have been difficult for the Fengwu in the past, but with the help of the tomb's owner, this difficulty was nothing. Fengwu led the spirits out of the stone room that was used to imprison the spirits. Not long after they left, Fengwu kicked a human-shaped object. Fengwu's big eyes were filled with confusion. No wonder she felt like she had forgotten something. It was Xiazhua. Xiazhua opened his eyes and found that he was back in the pile of bones at the bottom of the cliff. Fengwu. Xiazhua clearly remembered that he had entered the cave with Fengwu. How did he appear in this place? Could it be that he was dreaming just now? Did he not enter the cave in the first place? Xiazhua was very suspicious, but he wasn't sure. You're awake? We can leave now. Fengwu pursed her lips and said. As she spoke, she timidly peeked at Xiazhua. She had left Xiazhua alone outside. Would Xiazhua be angry? Fengwu girl fidgeted with her fingers and thought worriedly. Xiazhua, on the other hand, didn't think much of it. He was preoccupied with Fengwu's words. Leave this place? He wasn't dreaming, right? He felt like he had only slept for a while. Why did it feel like a long time had passed? He even found a way out. He didn't seem to have done anything other than sleeping. Thinking of this, he felt that he was quite useless. He scratched his head embarrassedly. Where do we go from here? Suppressing his emotions, Xiazhua tried to focus his attention on the way out. This place was filled with bones. Other than poisonous flowers, poisonous insects, and waves of miserable screams. There was nothing else. If there was a way, who would want to stay in this gloomy place? This gigolo is really useless. Xiao Wu, you should just dump him. Before Xiazhua woke up, these spirits had already chatted with Fengwu for a long time. One by one, they called her Xiao Wu instead of their benefactor. That's right, Xiao Wu. When you find a man, you should find a stronger one. Look at him. He looks like a bear that can be blown away by a phoenix. That's right, Xiao Wu. This brat's combat strength is trash. He's really not worthy of you. Not far from Fengwu, a large group of spirits pointed at Xiazhua. Their eyes were full of disdain for him. Completely unaware that he was being watched inhumanely, Xiazhua suddenly felt a little cold. He pulled his clothes and rubbed his hands. This place was indeed full of yin energy. It was better to leave quickly. Close your eyes, Fengwu said. Close my eyes? Although he was puzzled, he obediently closed his eyes because Fengwu girl wouldn't harm him. No matter what you feel later, don't open your eyes. Fengwu reminded him worriedly. Okay, I promise I won't open them. Xiazhua nodded and made a promise. Because Bao Bao said that Xiazhua couldn't see these spirits, he would definitely be frightened if he suddenly found out that he was surrounded by more than 1,000 spirits. In order not to scare him, Fengwu didn't say anything. In Fengwu girl's heart, Xiazhua was indeed a weak boy. It wouldn't be good if he was frightened. Xiazhua. Chapter 382. The wind blew into his ears, and his cheeks hurt from the cold wind. Xiazhua felt that he was flying, and he was flying higher and higher. It was as if his body was being pulled up by something, and he kept going up. Xiazhua actually wanted to open his eyes to see what was going on, but because of his agreement with Fengwu, even if he was curious, he didn't open his eyes. Everyone had their own secrets. Fengwu didn't let him open his eyes, so the way they left must be related to her secret. Xiazhua wasn't a person who liked to get to the bottom of things, and he wouldn't pry into other people's secrets. Because of Xiazhua's tactful attitude, the spirits who sent him to the top of the cliff had a better impression of him. They originally thought that he was a useless gigolo, but now it seemed that he wasn't that useless. At least he had a good character. After an unknown amount of time, it could have been a few minutes or a few hours, he finally stood on the ground again. You can open your eyes now. Fengwu's soft voice sounded. Her voice was as soft as cotton candy, and even if she was expressionless all day, it didn't affect her cuteness. However, Xiazhua wasn't in the mood to appreciate how cute the Fengwu girl was. As soon as he touched the ground, he immediately felt dizzy and lightheaded. Are you okay? Fengwu was also sent up by the spirits. The spirits used their spiritual energy to block all the cold wind for Fengwu. So Fengwu didn't feel any discomfort along the way. Xiazhua, on the other hand, didn't have such good treatment. The spirits listened to Fengwu and sent him to the top of the cliff, but they didn't block the cold wind for him. Xiazhua, who didn't have much strength, suffered a little. Xiazhua coughed twice and shook his head to show that he was fine, and that Fengwu didn't have to worry. They were now on the opposite side of the cliff, and Bess and the others had disappeared. They should have continued to move forward. After Xiazhua caught his breath, he took the initiative to continue exploring. Because of him, Fengwu had been implicated a lot, so they had to find a way out quickly. The two of them led the 1,000 souls and walked through the spacious tomb. I didn't think that I would be able to walk around in my tomb in this lifetime. The spirit of the king sighed, lamenting the vicissitudes of time. This is my first time here. So this is what His Highness's tomb looks like. There's dust everywhere. Let's clean it up quickly. The little maids who served the emperor were as diligent as bees, using their own spiritual power to clean up the tomb. These little maids were originally responsible for taking care of the emperor's daily needs, so they were good at cleaning. How could these little maids, who took pride in taking care of the emperor, tolerate the thick layer of dust that covered His Highness' resting place after his death? The soul of the young girl who was leading the cleaning was the owner of the corpse of the young girl, who had turned into a zombie. This girl had the highest status among the maids, and her clothes were also prettier than theirs. In front of the former emperor, she was obviously someone with some status. Xiazhua wondered if he had opened his eyes in the wrong way. Why did he feel that the entire tomb had suddenly become clean? The thick layer of dust that could have left footprints on the ground had magically disappeared. Could it be that this tomb had an automatic cleaning function? Unlike Xiazhua, Fengwu could see these souls. She watched them busily cleaning up the tomb. Each and every one of them was extremely diligent in their work. They were afraid that the tomb was not clean enough and would make their emperor uncomfortable. Bao Bao was speechless at this scene. You guys are going to reincarnate. Even if this place is built into a palace, you won't be able to live here for long. Fengwu, emotionless, it's so clean. The tomb has been cleaned. Walking on this tomb, one could almost smell the bursts of fragrance. Which master made this tomb? When we get out, we must find that master's disciple and build him a house with a self-cleaning function like this. It's decided then. Walking on the clean path of the tomb, they felt like time was passing faster. Why did they have this feeling? In fact, it was because they had walked out of the tomb path. Outside the tomb path was an exquisite and beautiful little garden. Colorful butterflies were dancing in the little garden. At the top of the garden, there was a shining pearl. The reason why so many beautiful plants could grow here and attract butterflies was because there was such a pearl that acted as the sun here. In addition to flowers, there were many medicinal herbs that were already extinct in this era. Every item here could make people go crazy if they were to take it out. However, putting aside whether the people outside were crazy or not, the people inside had already started to go crazy. XX, get out of here right now. I found this herb field first. Get out of here. XX, you saw it first, so it's yours? Are you going to die? Let go of me. Hand over this 10,000-year-old herb. Otherwise, you can rest and leave this tomb alive. Bah. I'd rather throw it in the toilet than give it to you. You be *th. If I had known earlier, I would have killed you. I knew that a *th like you who knows how to scheme can't be a good person. Humph. You're just a loser who thinks you're so great. Didn't you snatch the spirit fruit from someone else? What right do you have to talk about me? I snatched it fair and square, unlike a *th like you who only knows how to use underhanded tricks. These people who were fighting with people over a 10,000-year-old herb in the garden were Bess and the others. After Fengwu and the others fell, although the others felt that Bess was vicious and didn't want to be associated with her, after Bess explained that she was avenging her father's death, they didn't say much. If it was for no reason, they could find a reason to get rid of her, but this was obviously a revenge killing. These people couldn't care less. Besides, Bess was a little unreasonable and vicious to Fengwu and the others, but she didn't do anything bad to other people. These people accepted it and still explored the tomb with Bess. They didn't kill her or drive her away. It wasn't until the herb field appeared in front of these people that the temporary friendly tomb exploration came to an end. When there was danger and no valuable items, everyone could still move forward together in such a friendly manner. But once there was a conflict of interest, the originally temporary cooperation was immediately broken. In order to snatch a 10,000-year-old herb, in order to snatch a spiritual fruit that could only be found in books, these people fought fiercely. Some of them were even beaten to death. Chapter 383. Shouzo didn't expect to meet these guys again so early. Fengwu raised her eyebrows and looked at Bess. Suddenly, she leaped forward. Everyone only saw a shadow moving toward Bess. By the time Bess realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Her chest had been pierced by Fengwu's sword. She didn't even have time to feel the pain before her chest was pierced. His master had said, "Don't give those who want to kill you any chance. Once the other party wants to kill you, you can't be merciful. Otherwise, being merciful will only bring you endless trouble." Fengwu had always been an obedient girl. Bess wanted to kill her, and almost caused Shouzo to lose his life. The Fengwu girl was angry. She decided to listen to her master's teachings and get rid of this bad person who wanted to kill her. Fengwu had always felt that this bad guy didn't like her and hated her very much. She had felt the bad guy's killing intent more than once. Coupled with the fact that she had been plotted against at the cliff, Fengwu had made up her mind to kill this bad guy and not give him another chance to do it again. Fengwu's sudden attack stunned Shouzo. Those who thought Fengwu had died at the bottom of the cliff were also stunned. How could she still be alive after falling from such a high place? She must be kidding. The fighting stopped, and the shouting stopped. Everyone was looking at the girl who suddenly appeared. The girl who everyone thought had died at the bottom of the cliff. You're not dead. Bess, who was wounded by the sword in her chest, widened her eyes in disbelief. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. There was also a sword in her chest. It was a small sword. The small sword pierced through her chest and went straight through her back. Probably because she was too surprised to see Fengwu still alive, Bess didn't even feel a trace of pain. She only knew that her physical strength was constantly draining away. If she didn't get treatment, she was likely to die. Bad guy. Fengwu pulled out her dagger. Bess couldn't bear the intense pain and fell to the ground. No. Impossible. You can't still be alive. You can't still be alive. Impossible. After saying the last 3 impossibilities, Bess finally died with her eyes wide open and stopped breathing. The 2 of you actually survived? We all thought that you had already died at the bottom of the cliff. None of these people felt sad for Bess's death. They were all strangers. And it was only by chance that they came across each other when exploring the tomb together. They were not acquaintances, so who would have the time to care about the life and death of a stranger? Moreover, she was the one who had plotted against them first. Now that the 2 of them had survived, it was normal for them to kill her with a single sword strike. This was how the world worked. If you were strong, you would kill others. If you were weak, others would kill you. We were lucky that there was a pool at the bottom of the cliff. That's how we survived. Before Fengwu could say anything, Xiazhua took the initiative to answer their questions. Seeing that someone had come forward to answer, these curious people no longer surrounded Fengwu. Instead, they surrounded Xiazhua and asked him all kinds of questions. As soon as these people surrounded him, they asked a lot of questions. Xiazhua tried his best to answer the questions that he could. As for the questions that he couldn't say, he either glossed over it or made up a lie to cover it up. After half an hour, the enthusiasm of these people finally subsided a little. At the same time, they remembered that they were doing something important. Then some of them went back to digging herbs, some of them picked spirit fruits, and everyone was busy with their own things. Some of them continued the quarreling and fighting that had been interrupted just now. The scene became chaotic again. Xiazhua shook his head. He felt that these people were all stupid. Fengwu, do you see anything here that you are interested in? The herbs here are quite valuable. Pick a few of them. Even if you can't use them, you can still sell them for a lot of money. The herbs in this garden were precious, but they were not attractive to Xiazhua. He was born in a super family, so he had seen all kinds of good things since he was young. Although he was not interested, he still stealthily touched a few stalks of herbs that were of good age, and put them into his spatial ring. There were so many of them, so why did they have to fight over one stalk? Couldn't these people take advantage of the quarrel to pick more? Once again, he looked down on these people's intelligence. They are very valuable. Fengwu's black eyes lit up. To the Fengwu girl, money was equivalent to food. With money, there would be a lot of food. Thinking of those fragrant meat buns, chicken drumsticks, and barbecued meat, Fengwu narrowed her eyes and joined the army of herbs digging. When Xiazhua saw that Fengwu had gone to work, he didn't stay idle either. He immediately continued digging hard. On the other hand, the spirit bodies behind Fengwu couldn't understand this scene. Why are they so happy to see these herbs? Even herbs that are 10,000 years old wouldn't be so attractive. In ancient times, it could be said that it was the golden age of potioneers. In that era, herbs of all ages grew on the ground, probably because of the rich magical elements. Those herbs would always grow quickly. No matter how precious something was, no one would care if there were too many of them. Therefore, these spirit bodies couldn't understand why these people were so excited. Herbs went through a cycle of 10,000 years. 10,000 years was the limit of these herbs' lifespan. If they were not dug out after 10,000 years, they would slowly rot and melt back into the soil. When they grew out again, they would go through another 10,000 years of cycle. This was the law of the growth of herbs. Therefore, very few herbs could live for more than 10,000 years. Those that could live for more than 10,000 years were extremely precious and special species. The group of spirits were confused as they watched these human beings picking flowers in their emperor's garden. They were all fighting over something that was not worth anything in their eyes. They were making a ruckus and making a ruckus. These spirits thought that their way of waking up must be wrong. Otherwise, why would they see such a scene that they couldn't understand? After 2 hours of fighting, all the good things in the garden were taken away. Not even a blade of grass was left for the owner of the emperor's tomb. The spirit bodies were very angry. It was fine that their benefactor took away these things, but what the hell were these people doing? What right did they have to take away the flowers and fruits in their emperor's garden? Yes, in the eyes of these people, the valuable herbs and fruits were just ornamental herbs and fruits in the eyes of these spirit bodies. After all, these things weren't very precious in ancient times. The spirit bodies were angry that their emperor's garden was destroyed. They wanted to teach these humans a lesson. Fortunately, the emperor's spirit was very open-minded and stopped these people. In any case, they were already dead. These things were useless to the spirit bodies. These people could take them if they wanted. It was just some flowers and the emperor's spirit didn't care. All the spirit bodies looked at their emperor with admiration. The emperor was really magnanimous. He could even forgive such rude humans, excluding Fengwu. Wu. Our emperor is too magnanimous. Chapter 384. After dividing up the pile of valuable herbs and spirit fruits, Fengwu and the others continued to move forward. How strange! Don't you guys feel that this place seems to have become cleaner? A guy who wasn't very tall suddenly said. As he spoke, he looked around suspiciously, trying to see if it was just his imagination. When they entered the tomb, there was clearly dust everywhere, and there were a lot of cobwebs in some places. Why was it that the further they went, the cleaner it became? Now that you mention it, I have the same feeling too. As he spoke, he reached out and touched the wall beside him. When he opened his hand, it was really clean, and there wasn't even a speck of dust. It's so clean. The people who saw this scene were shocked. Then, they curiously reached out and touched the ground. It was really clean, and there wasn't even a speck of dust. Was this really a tomb that no one had entered for 10,000 years? It had to be a joke. No. There's definitely something wrong with this place. It's dangerous. Everyone be careful. This was a very cautious person. That makes sense. Something is indeed wrong. Everyone be careful of your surroundings. Someone nodded seriously in agreement. Seeing the spirit bodies of the maids diligently cleaning the tomb, Fengwu directly fell silent. She bit her lips and didn't say anything. The spirit bodies rolled their eyes, especially the little maids who were in charge of cleaning. After fiercely glaring at these guys, they said, "You're thinking too much." Then they continued to work hard in the tomb, cleaning the path in front of them until it was spotless. These people were shocked by this unbelievably clean tomb. They walked carefully for the next part of the path, afraid that some unknown danger would suddenly appear. After walking for more than 10 minutes, nothing happened. However, they didn't dare to relax, afraid that they would immediately lose their lives if they relaxed. 20 minutes later, they finally saw a stone room, but the stone room's door couldn't be opened. This is the dragon-breaking stone. Once it's put down, it can't be opened. Could this tomb contain the body of the sea god? Someone whimsically said in surprise. That's impossible. It's not that easy to find the main tomb. The person who spoke said cautiously. I don't think that's possible either. Think about it. Apart from the 2 ancient corpses and the lucky cliff, we didn't encounter any other obstacles. How could the dignified sea god's tomb reach the main tomb so easily? This person's analysis was very calm, but everyone had to admit that what she said was very reasonable. No matter how they thought about it, it was too easy. There's one more thing that I don't know if you've noticed. There were so many people who entered the sea god's tomb, but why were we the only ones who were teleported to this place? Where did everyone else go? This time, the one who spoke was a female magician. This woman's appearance was not bad, but she usually did not speak much, so her presence was not strong among these people. She hadn't taken the initiative to speak more than 3 times. giving everyone the impression that she was a very quiet beauty. Although this woman didn't have many opportunities to take the initiative to speak, she always went straight to the point and had a keen insight. In fact, this woman wasn't the only one who noticed this. It was just that everyone was anxious to obtain the treasures in the sea god's tomb. So why would they think so much? They couldn't wait for fewer people to come. That way, their chances of obtaining good things would be greatly increased. I also feel that it's quite strange. We've been here for so long, but why haven't we met anyone else? Could it be that we're not in the same place? These words were what most people were guessing. Originally, everyone thought that they were all in the same place, but in different places. If they continued forward, they might be able to meet someone else. However, from the first stage to the second stage, they had not met anyone else. That's very likely. I suspect that we're not in the real sea god's tomb. It's very likely that this is just a trial space. The sea god probably wants us to pass the trial he left behind. Only those who pass will receive his inheritance, and those who fail will die in there. There should be a few other trial spaces like this. All of us are trapped in one of these spaces. Unless we can pass all the trials, it won't be easy for us to leave. Xiazhua looked at this woman with a little surprise. He had to admit that she was very smart. She clearly didn't know anything about the sea god's tomb, but she was still able to figure out that something was wrong and come up with such a deduction. Although her deductions were all wrong, in a situation where she didn't know anything, she was still able to figure out that there wasn't only one such space, but many. Furthermore, this place wasn't the real sea god's tomb. Hearing this woman's deduction, aside from Fengwu and Xiazhua, everyone else looked at each other. Most people felt that this was the truth of the matter. There were also some people who stubbornly refused to believe it. They firmly believed that this was the main tomb of the sea god's tomb. As for the others who hadn't come, it was most likely that they were unlucky and had died in the corridor. These people were a bunch of brainless people who liked to take advantage of others. Of course, to be able to survive until now, they definitely had some tricks up their sleeves. Looks like we can't enter this place. Do we have to find another way out? What are you looking for? There's no way out here. I think that even if this isn't the sea god's tomb, the key to passing the trial must be inside. The man who spoke hit the wall hard and said with a gloomy face. It wasn't easy to find a stone room. They thought that it was the tomb of the sea god, but in the end, it wasn't. Most importantly, there was a dragon-breaking stone placed in the tomb. If they wanted to enter, they couldn't use normal methods. Everyone, let's look around. Maybe there's a mechanism. This was a good idea. Unwilling to give up, everyone went around knocking on the wall, hoping to find a mechanism that could open the dragon-breaking stone. Is there really a mechanism here? Fengwu whispered to the tomb owner standing next to her. No. The spirit of the emperor said with certainty. In order to prevent people from robbing the tomb, the emperor would personally place the dragon-breaking stone in the tomb. Once the dragon-breaking stone was placed in the tomb, it couldn't be opened again. The dragon-breaking stone was made of extraordinary materials. It was made of outer space star sand and 10,000-year cold stone. The door weighed 100,000 pounds. These two materials were famous for their sturdiness. Unless a divine weapon was used, it would be difficult for even a holy weapon to break it. Xiaowu, don't worry. The way out of here isn't through the tomb of our emperor. If there really is an exit here, it can only be in one place. Chapter 385. A soldier dressed in armor stepped forward and said loudly. His voice was as loud as thunder. Fortunately, the others could not hear him at all. Otherwise, they would have covered their ears. What is this place? Fengwu blinked cutely, her eyes filled with curiosity. It's there. That soldier pointed at a wall with nothing in it. There's nothing there? Fengwu girl looked in the direction that the soldier was pointing at. Other than a stone wall, there was nothing else. There is a secret door there. I was the one in charge of building the tomb. When I was designing the tomb, I specially got someone to make a secret door. There is an ice-fire-winged snake inside. It has both the power of fire and ice. It is the best choice to guard the tomb. In order to protect the emperor's tomb, We specially made a powerful demonic snake inside. We wanted to let those self-righteous tomb robbers who thought that they had found a way out suffer the consequences of their own actions. They even dared to rob our emperor's tomb. Death is not to be regretted. The more the soldier spoke, the more agitated he became. It was obvious that he hated tomb robbers. The spirit bodies at the side. Are you sure you know what you are saying? Feng Wu, who was involuntarily involved in tomb robbing. When that soldier finished his report, those people happened to find a well-hidden mechanism. After they excitedly opened the mechanism, the door that the soldier had mentioned opened. We finally found a way out. Everyone, let's go. Someone shouted excitedly. Everyone was very excited except for Feng Wu and the spirit bodies. There is an ice-fire-winged snake inside. Are you sure there is a way out? I think that even if there is a way out, there is no way out. It has been so long. Do you guys think that the snake has already become a god? A spirit body said whimsically. Forget it. How can it become a god so easily? Moreover, there are restrictions in this tomb. There is no way it can become a god. The soldier's spirit body said confidently as he patted his chest. If they weren't sure that the snake wouldn't run away halfway, they wouldn't have locked it up to guard their emperor's tomb. Xiao Wu, listen to me. Go around the ice-fire-winged snake and run forward. There is a path that leads to the underground. Once you reach the underground, you will have a chance to escape. The soldier shouted behind Feng Wu. Feng Wu nodded, indicating that she had heard. What's wrong? Xiaozhua asked worriedly. From the beginning, Feng Wu had been whispering by herself. He had never seen Feng Wu like this before, so he couldn't help but worry. I'm fine, the Feng Wu girl said affirmatively. Why are you asking this? Let me tell you. When you go down later, you have to follow Xiao Wu closely. The danger inside is greater than the 2 zombie corpses. Seeing that he was still confused, Bao Bao quickly changed the topic. More dangerous than a zombie. What level of danger was that? He knew how powerful the 2 zombie corpses were. If it was so dangerous inside, then why didn't Bao Bao stop them from going in? Then are we still going in? Xiaozhua looked at Bao Bao shamelessly. Bao Bao's eyes almost had the words "stupid mortal fish" written on them. Let's go in. Very good, a one-word answer. It was really neat. They followed these people into the new stone room. Originally, they thought they would see something like a sarcophagus inside. They didn't expect to see something like a sarcophagus, but what they saw made them a little confused. They saw a somewhat fat black snake, coiled in a circle, sleeping on a big rock in the middle of a pool. When it slept, its nose made a light snoring sound, and bubbles came out of its nose. On both sides of the snake, there were 2 very rare fruit trees, one red and one blue. It was obvious that they were water and fire spirit fruits. The 2 spirit fruits emitted strong water and fire elemental powers, looking very extraordinary. Although the 2 spirit fruit trees were very tempting, making people want to pick them and take them away. Looking at the sleeping snake and the black snake, everyone was a little hesitant. This guy looked very powerful, and they really wanted to rush up and fight with it. Among these people, there were already people who recognized that this snake was obviously a precious sacred beast from ancient times, the ice-fire-winged snake. In ancient times, the ice-fire-winged snake was also a very powerful existence, but later on, because of their powerful combat power, they were coveted by many demons. In order to capture the ice-fire-winged snake to fight for them, the demons sent a large number of demons to capture the ice-fire-winged snake. In that battle, many ice-fire-winged snakes died at the hands of those demons, and only a few survived, and since then, they lived in seclusion in the depths of the spirit world, never appearing in front of people again. There were legends that said that there were no more than 10 ice-fire-winged snakes alive, and they were a super rare sacred beast. Those who recognized the ice-fire-winged snake were very nervous. This was one of the strongest sacred beasts in the legends. If they really fought, would they really have a chance to survive? In front of their little lives and spirit fruits, everyone decisively chose their own little lives. F***CK. This is the tomb guardian magical beast you chose? Are you kidding me? This guy was born less than 20 years ago. It's simply a baby magical beast, still at the age of drinking milk. That's right, could it be that you put in an egg, and after 10,000 years, it finally hatched? No, 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 I think it's impossible for General XX to be so unreliable. Don't you think that maybe the snake was bored and gave birth to a baby to play with? It's possible, but where's its mother? Where's its mother? After these spirits saw the ice-fire-winged snake, they began to have a heated discussion. Because no one saw them along the way, they were used to talking to themselves like this. Anyway, they were not afraid of disturbing others. Of course, they could talk as loudly as they wanted, and there was no need to be afraid of being heard at all. Unfortunately, they forgot one thing. As spirits, they couldn't be too rigid. Humans couldn't see them, but it didn't mean that magical beasts couldn't see them. The ice-fire-winged snake, who was awakened by the noise, was very unhappy. It didn't even open its eyes to look at Feng Xiang, who was speaking. This flame was not an ordinary flame. The fire of the ice-fire-winged snake was a kind of strange flame. Once touched, it would not be easy to extinguish, and the temperature was as high as the eruption of magma. Such a terrible flame attack. At least you should open your eyes and make some noise to attack. Why didn't you follow the routine? While everyone was complaining in their hearts, they moved to the sides at the same time. Feng Wu also pulled Shouzo to dodge quickly. F***CK. It spits fire at the slightest disagreement. Everyone be careful, this guy is very powerful. After dodging, everyone raised their swords and wands. A big battle was about to break out. Chapter 386. As a rare ice-fire-winged snake, it already knew its own species and origin from its own inheritance. His mother was a beautiful ice-fire-winged serpent. She was also a famous beauty among her own kind. Once, after quarreling with her kind for a while, his mother wanted to go to the human world to relax and vent the dissatisfaction in her heart. But what its mother didn't expect was that in this trip to the human world, it was unlucky enough to be captured by humans. Moreover, it was sealed in this emperor's tomb where it couldn't see the light of day. Although the life in the emperor's tomb was quiet, it was too boring. Its mother, who liked to be lively, felt that this kind of life was simply not something a magical beast could live. So, its mother used her own blood to give birth to it. And its mother also died after giving birth to it because of exhaustion. Since then, its mother was freed and would never be bored again. But the pitiful snake began to replace its mother to live a boring life. Every day, it would eat and sleep and eat without any pressure. The little ice-fire-winged snake said that actually, there was nothing bad about this. It ate and slept well every day. No one had ever come to the emperor's tomb. However, it hoped that someone would come in. If the person who came in was not bad, it could choose one of them to form an equal contract. Then it could use the power of the contract to leave here. Today, when it opened its eyes, there were actually humans. These humans looked exactly the same as the ones it saw in its inheritance. So they were humans. But they were too weak. Each and every one of them was like a weak chicken. Thinking about the memories its mother left for it, there were those powerful people. Comparing the results, these people didn't know that they were already treated as dregs by the ice-fire-winged snake. Hey, humans, what are you doing here? The ice-fire-winged snake's eyes were big and a pair of golden vertical pupils. Its voice was unexpectedly small. Its voice was similar to a 5- or 6-year-old child. After the ice-fire-winged snake heard the movement, it opened its eyes and saw this group of people standing not far from it. They were looking at it with vigilance. Not far from these people, it actually saw one of the people who captured its mother. But that person didn't have a body. From its inheritance, it knew that those people who didn't have a body were dead. No, it should be said that they were the souls of the dead. She was already dead, and it had no intention of rushing up to avenge its mother. It just looked at the intruders lazily, feeling very curious. I'm sorry, we didn't mean to disturb you. We just wanted to find a way out. Seeing that the ice-fire-winged serpent was no longer attacking, these people naturally wouldn't take the initiative to provoke it. Taking the initiative to provoke a combat-type holy beast, they wouldn't be courting death. A swordsman holding a sword stepped forward, representing everyone to talk to this ice-fire-winged snake that seemed to be reasonable. Go out? You guys actually still want to go out? If I could go out, I would have gone out long ago. Meng Meng's cute voice sounded very cute, but the words that came out of his mouth made people want to beat him up. You mean there's no way out of this place? No. No way. There must be a way to leave this damned place. I don't believe it. I don't believe that there's no way out of such a huge tomb. Some of the guys who were already emotionally unstable immediately said excitedly. Hee hee, don't even think about it. If I could go out, I would have gone out long ago. Otherwise, who would be willing to stay in this damned place? While speaking, the serpent swung its tail, and a red and a blue fruit fell onto its coiled-up body. Crunch. In just 2 or 3 bites, the 2 spirit fruits were finished. Everyone stared at this ice-fire-winged snake with envy and jealousy. These days, even a magical beast was living a better life than humans. Looking at its skillful action of eating the spirit fruits, one look and one could tell that it was eating the spirit fruits as food all day long. They also wanted to have spirit fruits to eat for 3 meals a day, but unfortunately, this could only be a dream. Can we go inside and take a look? Xiazhua politely stepped forward, neither servile nor overbearing. There's nothing inside. Are you sure you want to go in? The ice-fire-winged snake felt that these humans simply had nothing to do after eating. There was obviously nothing inside, but they still wanted to rush in. Don't know if it's convenient? The swordsman who spoke at the beginning also agreed after hearing Xiazhua's words. In any case, before they searched the entire stone room, they couldn't give up any hope. If you want to go, then go. The cute Zheng Tai-yin indifferently said. This time, everyone was happy. Finally, they didn't need to fight to solve the problem. God knows, they didn't want to cause any more problems. No one noticed that since this ice-fire-winged snake started to talk, Fengwu girl's eyes were sparkling. Since entering this place, she hadn't encountered any plants or magical beasts that had independent thoughts. She had been unable to sense their emotions, but now she finally saw a magical beast that could talk. Fengwu girl made a decision. After everyone bid farewell to this friendly ice-fire-winged snake, Fengwu unexpectedly went straight to the side of the pool. Her pair of eyes were sparkling, happily staring at this rare ice-fire-winged snake in front of her. Fengwu. Xiazhua was extremely anxious, but he didn't dare to go forward. Now the ice-fire-winged snake hadn't started to attack Fengwu. If he went forward, the ice-fire-winged snake would mistake him for wanting to attack. At that time, not only would he not be able to bring Fengwu back, he would also put her in danger. F***ck. This girl is too awesome. What does she want to do? She mustn't implicate us. Even daring to approach the ice-fire-winged snake, she doesn't want to live anymore. I really can't see it. Could it be that this girl wants to fight with that ice-fire-winged snake alone? She already let us go. What's the point of fighting alone? If she causes me to die here, I will definitely take her down with me before I die. The person who spoke had a vicious aura. With one look, one could tell that he wasn't a person with a good temper. How can this girl be so bold? She mustn't implicate us. These people were discussing spiritedly. They were very afraid that because of Fengwu, they had to stop and fight with this awesome ice-fire-winged snake. They could obviously leave, but at this time, because of someone they didn't know, they had no choice but to fight. It was simply too difficult for them to accept. Hello, my name is Fengwu. My friends call me Xiaowu. If possible, I want to be friends with you. Fengwu girl somewhat nervously looked at the ice-fire-winged snake, somewhat worried that she would be rejected. When she spoke, she still looked so serious. Her pair of big black eyes still had a trace of persistence. Chapter 387. She still looked so serious when she spoke, and there was a trace of persistence in her big black eyes. Ice-fire-winged snake. This human feels so strange. Her aura smells so good. Maybe being friends with her is a good choice. Everyone. Girl, you actually want to be friends with the famous ice-fire-winged snake. Are you sure you're not sent by monkeys to make fun of us? Be friends? Well, I quite like your aura. I'll remember to be friends with you. The big snake head tilted, and the ice-fire-winged snake nodded its head, agreeing without any pressure. Damn. We're friends now. It must be the way I open my eyes. I'll close my eyes for a while, and then open them again. I can't believe it. She actually succeeded. If I had known earlier, I would have walked up. Then I could also be friends with such an awesome holy beast. This is luck. Look at her. She's beautiful and strong. She can still come back alive after falling off the cliff. This time she took the initiative to hook up with the ice-fire-winged snake. She actually succeeded. Hearing you say that, I'm beginning to suspect that the girl is the illegitimate daughter of the world's consciousness. How can her luck be so good? If Irene heard someone say this, she would definitely refute loudly. You're mistaken. The real illegitimate daughter of the world's consciousness is the female lead, Zicheng. Then we're friends. What's your name? Fengwu, who had made a new friend, was very happy. While speaking, she threw the chicken legs and meat buns she had collected to the ice-fire-winged snake to eat. The ice-fire-winged snake looked at these and tilted its head. It smelled the fragrance of the chicken legs and meat buns. It had never smelled this fragrance before. It was so fragrant. A voice began to echo in its mind. Eat, eat. The voice kept repeating. Ah. It ate a chicken leg in a big bite. The delicious taste of the chicken legs instantly conquered the country turtle snake that had never eaten before. How could there be such delicious things in this world? Although the magic element content was very low, it was really delicious. Seeing that she was even willing to share such delicious food with it, it would tell it her name. My name is White Lotus. White Lotus proudly announced his name. This name was too powerful. Why would a black lotus be named White Lotus? You could have just been named Black Lotus. Tell me, can you find any white spots on your body? Can you find it? Can you find it? Everyone silently spammed the bullet screen in their hearts. Even Shozo, who had just been relieved that Fengwu would not be in any danger, followed these people and spammed the bullet screen several times, wondering if he should fire again. Are you a girl? The name by Lien made Fengwu's first impression was that her new friend was actually a girl. You're a girl. Your whole family is made up of girls. White Lotus, who had always thought of himself as a pure man of 24K, couldn't take it anymore. I'm a girl. Fengwu blinked innocently. Very good. Bai Lian silently swallowed a mouthful of old blood. What you said makes sense. I actually have nothing to say. I'm a male. Do you know that? Forget it. It was magnanimous enough to forgive her this time. But you're called White Lotus, Fengwu said seriously. So what if I'm called White Lotus? Lotus is my favorite flower. There were originally 2 here, but unfortunately I ate them. Thinking of the 2 lotus flowers that were eaten by it, White Lotus felt a little regretful. He should have left them behind to let this friend see the beauty of lotus. Then why not call yourself Black Lotus? A heroic magician couldn't help but ask. Who knew that White Lotus would fiercely slap the ground with his tail? Just when everyone thought that this ice-fire-winged snake was going to show off its power, it only slapped the ground once and didn't do anything else. Just that. How can Black Lotus be more beautiful than White Lotus? White Lotus rolled his eyes and cast a look of disdain at the guy who spoke. White Lotus felt that humans' aesthetic was not as good as magical beasts. But you're obviously black. Fengwu asked puzzledly. Just like the dogs in the village, white ones were called Little White and Big White, black ones were called Little Black and Big Black, yellow ones were called Little Yellow or Big Yellow, and if there were flowers, they would be called Big Flower and Little Flower. No one would be so bored as to call a black dog Little White, and a white dog Little Black. I'm going to be called White Lotus. I like the name White Lotus. Who dares to have an opinion? After saying that, his eyes narrowed. This was obviously a blatant threat. No opinion. White Lotus is a good name. It's a match made in heaven with you. Not bad, not bad. You really have good taste. Only such a tasteful name is worthy of you. This name can't be more compatible with Ruthless. Lord White Lotus, I've never lied. Today, I'll tell you the truth. You and this name, it's a perfect match for my face. Xiazhua. Fengwu. White Lotus, proud there are still many people with good taste these days. Since we're friends, then Lord will accompany you to take a look inside. White Lotus looked at Fengwu proudly and said, You're such a good White Lotus. The Fengwu girl said with a smile. No, we're not good. Why does this guy have to come with us? If it suddenly attacks, who can stop it? Once Lord White Lotus decides on something, It's not something you can stop. Thus, in the exploration of the tomb ahead, there was an additional sacred beast called the ice-fire-winged snake. When they left the pool, White Lotus actually put the 2 trees next to it into its sacred beast space. As for its mother's body, it had always been stored in its space by White Lotus. There was no need to take it away. Just now, White Lotus really didn't think that they could leave this place, but after seeing Fengwu and the wise beast, it changed its mind. Following them might really be able to leave this place. Back then, its mother was trapped in this place for 10,000 years and couldn't get out. It was only 20 years old. It might be able to do what its mother couldn't do for 10,000 years. It's not good to get excited just thinking about it. That's right, White Lotus had only been born for less than 20 years. Although it was small, it was born from the condensation of its mother's essence, blood and strength. Therefore, White Lotus' starting point was much higher than many naturally pregnant sacred beasts. Before White Lotus's mother died, she gave all her power to White Lotus. If not for this, who knows how long it would have taken for White Lotus to be born. With its mother's power, although White Lotus was only equivalent to a baby among magical beasts, its strength was enough to crush everyone here. Chapter 388. Beyond the pool, they could see a long tomb path. White Lotus had often run in that direction. It wanted to find a chance to leave this damned place, and not stay here to be some sacred guardian beast. Unfortunately, it had explored the tomb path many times without finding anything. In the end, White Lotus finally gave up, until Fengwu and the others arrived. Only then did White Lotus regain a bit of confidence. Bai Lian transformed herself into a small black snake and wrapped it around Fengwu's wrist. If one didn't look closely, it would look like an exquisitely crafted black bracelet. It was so realistic that it could be mistaken for a real bracelet. Do you think that little guy can really see us? The spirits behind Fengwu looked curiously at Little Black. Maybe. Didn't it just breathe fire at us? That makes sense. It might really be able to see us. I've never heard of a magical beast having the ability to see spirits before. What do you think is going on with this little guy? How can it see us? I think it might be a coincidence. These juniors were standing in front of us just now. Maybe it wanted to breathe fire at them. That makes sense. I think so too. The spirits were divided into 2 factions. One faction felt that White Lotus could see them, and the other faction felt that it could not. White Lotus's reaction was to lazily glance at them. A bunch of idiots. Other than Fengwu and White Lotus, the others did not know that there was a group of noisy spirits behind them. These people hurried forward, hoping to find a way to get through this obstacle. There's no way. The people walking in front slammed the wall dejectedly, their eyes full of disappointment. Everyone, let's see if there's any mechanism. Didn't we find a mechanism to get in just now? Someone did not give up hope. Everyone thought about it and agreed. Maybe there really was a mechanism in this place. Is there a mechanism? A spirit who did not know the situation asked curiously. There is, but that path is not easy to walk. The spirit of the general shook its head. There was indeed a way to get out from here, but it would be very dangerous. It was very likely that everyone would die. When they built the mausoleum, they never thought of letting the tomb robbers out. The only path was not dug by them, but by the craftsmen who were afraid of being buried with them. They had secretly dug this secret tunnel, so that when the mausoleum was about to be closed, they could sneak out through this tunnel and escape with a slim chance of survival. Since the ancient times, all the craftsmen who had participated in the construction of the emperor's mausoleum, as well as those in charge who had seen the topographic map of the emperor's mausoleum, were mostly buried together with the emperor's mausoleum. As a result, when choosing craftsmen, they would often choose criminals on death row who had committed grave crimes as priority. If there weren't enough criminals on death row, they would also choose some people who were willing to be buried with them to participate in the construction of the mausoleum. Those who willingly entered the mausoleum to be buried with the dead would usually treat this as their only chance of survival. They would find an opportunity to create an opportunity for themselves to escape. This secret passage was secretly dug by some prisoners on death row in order to escape with their lives. At that time, the person in charge of supervising the construction of the mausoleum had discovered their secret passageway and had killed the few death row criminals who had participated in it. It could be considered as killing one police officer and 100 others. Although those people had already been killed, the secret passageway they had dug out was still there. It would be somewhat difficult to patch up this secret passageway. As a result, at that time, they had installed protective measures at the only exit. After so many years, they didn't know what had become of that place. One had to know that back then, they had made that thing go down. Fengwu and the others didn't know about this. Everyone was actively searching for the mechanism to open the door. This mechanism was extremely difficult to find. Everyone had knocked on every single wall, but they still couldn't find anything. Hurry up and tell Xiao Wu where the mechanism is. What are you still standing there in a daze for? The little maid at the side shouted at the general, who was in a daze. Xiao Wu, the mechanism is actually under your feet. The area under your feet is the one. If you want to go down, then break the ground under your feet. There is a mechanism underground that can be activated. Although the general was worried that the thing below would grow too terrifying and put his benefactor in danger, since his benefactor wanted to go out, no matter what, he would risk his life to protect his benefactor. Fengwu listened and nodded. She circulated Douqi to her feet, and then stomped on the ground. A small area on the ground actually began to break open. Everyone look. She found the mechanism. Someone saw the empty area under Fengwu's feet, and shouted excitedly. Ho ho ho, there was finally hope for an exit. A group of people excitedly surrounded Fengwu, and looked at the secret chamber that had just been revealed. Who would have thought that the mechanism was actually on the ground? They had walked around and stepped on it so many times, but no one had discovered it. Fortunately, Fengwu had discovered it. Otherwise, wouldn't they be trapped here until they died? The Fengwu girl had already moved her feet away, revealing a turntable-like mechanism inside. This turntable-like mechanism should be the mechanism to open the next tomb passage. Now everyone could finally leave this damned place. A male swordsman impatiently turned the turntable-like mechanism. The moment the turntable-like mechanism was turned, the ground began to rumble. The ground began to shake more and more violently. Everyone tried to grab onto something to maintain their balance. Unfortunately, before they could grab onto anything, the ground began to collapse. The tomb passage began to collapse. When Fengwu wanted to escape with Shouzo, it was already too late. The ground collapsed and everyone fell from the collapsed area. Ah! 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 A series of blood-curdling screams could be heard. The people here had fought their way through blood and gore. As they screamed, they reacted quickly and added a layer of defensive barrier around themselves. This defensive barrier could at least minimize the damage they received. Splash! Splash! A series of splashes could be heard. It was Fengwu and the others who had fallen from the sky. They did not fall to the ground, but fell into a deep and cold lake. Quickly go ashore. There's something under the water. Everyone swam to the shore in a panic. Even Shouzo tried his best to swim to the shore. He had learned his lesson when he fell this time. He reacted quickly and put on a defensive scroll. Otherwise, with his useless body, it would be a problem for him to stay awake. Oh no, that thing is eating my magic shield. A mage who was physically weak shouted in panic. Chapter 389. What kind of weird fish is this? Someone cursed. That's right, what attacked them was not some extraordinary monster. It was just a kind of small fish the size of a palm. However, these small fish were not ordinary creatures. They had sharp teeth in their mouths, and they could also swallow their douqi and magic. Their lethality was not ordinary. Come ashore. Everyone, hurry up. There were people who swam to the shore as fast as they could, but there were also some who were unlucky. Before they could swim to the shore, they were already eaten by the fish. Not even a bone was left. It was brutal. Xiazhua panted heavily. His face was extremely pale. A sharp pain came from his thigh. This was the pain of being bitten by these weird fish. That's right, there were 3 palm-sized silver-white fishes biting onto his thigh. These fishes wouldn't let go once they were bitten. And some of their bites were extremely painful. Like Xiazhua, there were a few people who came ashore with fish. They were the ones who were eaten by the weird fish before they could get up. They almost died in the fish's stomach. It was too painful. These fishes were biting his flesh tightly. That kind of pain was like digging out his bones. Let us go. Fengwu was lucky. Her ducky was not eaten up and she came ashore. She noticed Xiazhua as soon as he came ashore and immediately went to help. However, these fishes refused to let go. Some people tried to use fire magic to burn these fishes to death, but it was useless. Magic and doqi attacks had no effect on these fishes. They were just as difficult to deal with as the zombies that were chasing them not long ago. Fengwu also tried to use her duqi, but it was useless. She took out her pure sword and tried to use the power of the pure sword. The moment the pure sword appeared, those fishes that were still biting onto the human's body couldn't wait to loosen their jaws. Then they jumped into the water and quickly sank, disappearing without a trace. The densely packed little white fishes just now simply ran away without leaving a single one behind. Everyone, they escaped. These people had already noticed that the sword in Fengwu's hand was extraordinary. When fighting against the two corpse fiends, only Fengwu's sword had caused damage to them. The other people's attacks had no effect at all. Oh my god, this sword is a divine weapon in the end. Why are these ferocious fish so afraid of it? Many people coveted the sword in Fengwu's hand, and some even had the idea of killing her to seize the treasure. The Heavenly Wind continent had never been a paradise for people to live and work in peace and contentment. The law of the jungle was enforced here, where the strong survived and the weak were eliminated. Without sufficient strength, but with a powerful weapon, if this wasn't tempting to commit a crime, then what was? Little girl, your sword is quite powerful. Could it be that this is a holy sword? A middle-aged man, who thought he was older, approached Fengwu and asked about Xiaochun. No. Xiaochun had said that he was a divine sword. Wasn't it? Who are you trying to fool? Sure enough, he was still young and thought that he could fool them like this. The middle-aged man who spoke thought disdainfully. Since it's not, why don't you sell this sword to me? You can name the price. The man said with a forthright expression. Xiazhua looked at this scene with an ashen face. This man was really shameless. No. Fengwu shook her head and rejected. Why don't uncle use his own sword to exchange with you? The man looked at Fengwu and pointed to the beautiful sword in his hand that was inlaid with many magical beast cores and stones. No. Xiaochun was a friend, so she would not exchange with him. To Fengwu, Xiaochun was her sword and also her friend. The only people who came from another world like her were Xiaochun and her master. Therefore, Xiaochun was a special existence to Fengwu. How could she exchange Xiaochun with a stranger? Uncle's sword is worth 10 million gold coins. Are you sure you don't want to consider it? The man saw that Fengwu did not agree no matter what he said. He was annoyed. Lao Zi's sword took 3 whole years and nearly 10 million gold coins to forge. Now he wanted to use it to exchange for your broken sword, and you still did not agree. You are really shameless. No. Fengwu still shook her head firmly. Xiazhua breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Fengwu did not agree. He was really afraid that Fengwu would not know anything and be cheated of the sword by this man. This guy is too shameless. He wants to use an ordinary magical sword to exchange for a divine sword. You can't be so shameless. He might as well just rob it. That's right. This is too embarrassing. The sword masters at the side whispered and felt that the middle-aged man was shameless. The man sighed and did not say anything to Fengwu. He obediently moved to the side and did not try to trick Fengwu into giving up the sword in her hand. Although the man had walked away, everyone could imagine that he hadn't given up yet. As long as he had the chance, he would try to take the sword back. But next time, he wouldn't come to talk to Fengwu nicely. He might even use his explosive strength. After watching a good show, the injured sat on the shore and cleaned their wounds. Those who had medicine directly drank it. Fortunately, this was a world of magic and swords. As long as they drank some healing medicine, their flesh wounds would heal very quickly. Even Xiazhua, who had the weakest physique, drank the medicine from his space ring. His wounds quickly healed and formed a pink scar. While the injured were being treated, everyone began to size up their position. This was a very huge underground cave. Of course, such a huge cave could not have been dug out by a few death row convicts. In fact, it was those death row convicts who discovered this place and dug out a way out of this cave. This cave was extremely huge. The place they fell into was a cold pond that was emitting cold air. Not far from the cold pond was a gurgling river. The river water flowed to an unknown place. It was very clear and bright. On the bank of the river was a large stone path. The path was filled with small stones. In addition, in the direction of the river flow, they could see a deep passage. They did not know if it led to the exit. Let's go. Hopefully, we can get out of here. After the wounds were treated, everyone continued on their way. Fengwu followed behind everyone as usual and walked together with Xiazhua. In the cave, the sound of the flowing river was very clear. The humidity here was heavier and gave off a gloomy feeling. Even with magic and fighting energy protecting their bodies, it still made them shiver. It's so dark in here. After walking for a short while, they stood in the direction of the flowing river. In front of them was a very dark and deep passage. Let's go. Everyone keep up. I wonder if something will come out of it. That's right. This is too dark. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.